Yeah, we're off. Hi, guys.
Yin yang, the male and
Oh, what the fuck are you guys even talking about?
Global controls will have to be imposed, and a world governing body will be created to enforce them.
Hey, Diane. Hi, Phil. Good to see you guys.
That's some interdimensional shit. Wake up, Aaron.
This is only the beginning.
You should fill my mind.
Are you ready to get your mind blown?
Good morning, Swarm, and welcome to Ball Hat. You know I am. You know I'm here to do. I'm here to.
Roar!
Okay, that was horrible. Joining me as always, Xavier Guerrero, and not here, Johnny Woodard. He's not here, everybody. Don't pay attention. He's not here. Guys, real quick, go to samtripoli.com. I have tons of events coming up, tons of dates. Next week, the 10th, 10/10, I'm at the Comedy Store with a murder lineup. We just added Trevor Wallace to Russell Peters, Tony Rock, Amir K, Brandon Schaub, Josh Wolf, Jessime Peluso, murderers. Then I'm in Morris Plains on the 13th, actually the 12th, the 13th, and 14th. Then I'm in Thousand Oaks on the 19th. And then I just added on the 11th, November 3rd and November 4th, I'll be in Indianapolis and St. Louis, plus on November 10th, Bellflower, California. Go grab those tickets now. Support me, support you, support me. And go to samtripoli.com. Paul Begley better not be there, buddy, for all your needs. And that's about it. Very excited to have her on. She's a very, very thorough researcher, an amazing artist. Please welcome back to the show, Susan Harrell. How are you, Susan?
I'm good. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on.
So, Susan, for those who may not be familiar with your last appearance on the show, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and where our listeners can find you?
Sure. My name is Susan Harrell. I am a visual artist living in Central North Carolina. I have been a photorealistic oil painter since around my early 20s. Photorealism is a genre of art where the artist studies a photograph and attempts to reproduce it in another medium. This photorealism requires the ability to pay close attention to fine details, details that might otherwise go unnoticed. My experience in the arts has cultivated this appreciation for subtle details and symbolism, which I believe has likely contributed to my understanding of the conspiracy that we find ourselves in. The arts has also drawn my attention to architecture and some famous public art with highly esoteric qualities. A sculpture that fits this genre would be Prometheus, which stands outside of Rockefeller Center. Hundreds of people skate around in front of Prometheus every year, unknowing to what that actually symbolizes. So if people had a better understanding of Greek mythology and symbolism, I think that they would have a better understanding of the world around them in general.
I love this because I think you're spot on everything you say. Real quick, do you have a website? Do you have Instagram? And then I'll make a comment on that real quick. Do you have any of those?
Right now, I'm just on Instagram, and I go by Susie Hughes, FUZIECUES _ and I am just getting ready to launch a Patreon, which will go by the same name. I don't have a website or anything like that. I'm just a painter who has stumbled across this bizarre conspiracy.
There is a website with your art, though.
Oh, yes. SusanHarrell.com, and that's HARRELL.com.
Okay, we want to make sure everyone can appreciate your work. So all those links are below. We will make sure to include them in the description. So I love what you're saying. I'm into everything that you're saying. I don't think so. Some people think everything's getting worse.
First link
I
of the
just think
day.
it's getting more obvious. That's a meme I saw.
Yes.
I don't know who came up with that meme, but that encapsulates exactly how I feel. That we are living in a time of great illumination. That everything is coming to the forefront, and they're freaking out. And for whatever reason, there's rules to the universe, and part of the rules is they have to tell us what they're doing so they don't get karma blowback. That's their rules. And, regardless of what you think of Q, and I'm fine with it if you hate it, because I think it might have been Operation Trust, but the whole point of Operation Trust was that it had to give you real truth. They had to tell you the truth in order to capture a very paranoid segment of society. So, their symbolism is their downfall. That was from Q, and I do believe that to be true, and more stuff is coming out. And again, we do a lot of episodes on it, but I do believe that this is all God versus fallen angels. It's seen across all these different disciplines. We talk about it all the time. And that's why I think this is where we are right now. And I think people are starting to realize they have to start picking sides before it gets too late. So where do you want to start, Susan?
Yes, well, first of all, I agree very much with what you just said. I think that people just now becoming aware of what's going on, but all of this has been going on the whole time. People are just kind of learning, and I think purposefully. I think the conspiracy is being revealed purposefully. With my work, I cover a lot of really strange numerology, which kind of demonstrates that the elite are indeed practicing an ancient cult religion, which revolves around a lot of astrology. So one that I recently discovered was Donald Trump announced that he was running for president 666 days after his last full day as president.
No way! Did you hear that? Let's do that one again.
And this was also 666 days before 9/11, 2024. So that's that's kind of what a coincidence.
Wow.
And then hours after he made this announcement, NASA announced that they were going to the moon on the rocket named Artemis. Now, Artemis is the twin of Apollo. And what's interesting about that is Donald Trump has a large mural of Apollo in his penthouse.
Yeah, that's true.
66 floor penthouse at Trump Tower. But Trump Tower doesn't have 66 floors. So to me, that kind of indicates his interest in numerology right there.
I think it's interesting. I think this is all very interesting. I think astrology, they always say millionaires study the market, billionaires study the stars. We've said that before on the show.
Yes.
And I think that is it. I think there is a religion, whatever it may be, of the elites. There is astrology in the Bible. We've had guests come on and talk about that. Numerology and all that stuff. I think if people dismiss that as dark arts and stuff like that, I think you're missing on. And even if you think it's dark arts, that's fine. But just know that that's what they believe. And you have to study what they believe to understand what they're doing.
Right. Well, I think it's very important to distinguish the practice of worshiping astrology and being aware of astronomy, which is two very, very different things. So the Bible is basically more in the lines of astronomy, being aware of the stars, and astrology is more the practice of what the elite get into, which is they believe they're harnessing the power of the stars and worshiping the stars as entities. So that's two very, very different ways to view the planets and stars. And another thing to note about this number of 666 is people don't understand that this is an ancient number, a significant number related to Kabbalah. It's kind of become a mockery in modern times because they used it kind of carelessly in music videos and this kind of thing. But it relates back to King Solomon's temple. So King Solomon received 666 talents per year. So I believe this is why 666 is a significant number to Freemasonry. You might recall that George Washington's obelisk, whenever I first started digging into this kind of stuff, the measurements for George Washington's obelisk, which is Osiris symbolism, was 6,666 inches tall.
Yep.
What? 666 inches wide. So they kind of always cryptically.
Okay, I didn't know it was 666 inches wide. I didn't know that.
Encode this Masonic numerology into a lot of things. You know the Kaaba in Mecca,
Yes.
which I believe is just Saturn symbolism.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, they even march around. It's a black cube. So
It is the black cube.
Which is
100%.
right. It is a black cube, right? And the black cube comes from, there's a hexagon-shaped storm on the North Pole of Saturn. And a hexagon is a two-dimensional cube. So, in Freemasonry, you'll see the Seal of Solomon very often, which is what we know of, which most people recognize as the Star of David. Well, there is no actual Star of David. It's this is a esoteric symbol used in witchcraft, and it's up triangle merged with a down triangle, and the shape that's created in the center is the hexagon or a cube.
Yeah.
So in Freemasonry, in Kabbalah, you guys know this. Like their whole religion is based on Baphomet. So just about every single symbol in Freemasonry is actually referring to Baphomet. So, Masonry has the twin pillars. The pillars represent male and female. The Star of David or the Seal of Solomon is two triangles. One, the male is the up triangle, and then the down triangle is the, I'm sorry, I had that backwards. The up triangle is female, the down triangle is male. And whenever you merge them, you create perfect balance, which creates God. And in their religion, balancing male and female is how you create God. So God is the cube created in the center.
Okay, so that's how they do
the
it.
Kaaba in Mecca, I believe, is just symbolic of this. Saturn symbolism. And if you take on a laptop from Google Earth, drop a pin on the center of the cube and measure to the Dome of the Rock, which is where Solomon's temple supposedly was, it's exactly 6,666.66 nautical miles.
Whoa.
No way!
What?
That can't be a
Exactly.
coincidence. That can't be a coincidence. Like when you go point like decimal, that's just
Wow.
No, there's no way that's a coincidence. And to make things even more interesting, Donald Trump he's kind of surrounded by Kabbalists. Like his daughter wears the Kabbalah red string, and they attend Chabad. They're clearly practicing Kabbalah. Donald Trump's greatest influence was a man named Norman Vincent Peale, who was a Scottish Rite Knights Templar. And he was supposedly a pastor. Well, these are two very, very conflicting ideologies. And the Knights Templar go all the way back to these temples, Solomon's Temple. And the interesting thing about Solomon's Temple is that the most significant Jewish holiday is a holiday called Tish B'Av. And Tish B'Av is the day that both the first and second temple were destroyed. Tish B'Av translates to 9/11.
What?
Yes.
So explain that to me again. What was
all right.
Okay, I missed that. I was reading Di's link. What did she say?
Supposedly a pastor. Well, these are two very, very conflicting ideologies. And the Knights Templar go all the way back to these temples, Solomon's Temple. And the interesting thing about Solomon's Temple is that the most significant Jewish holiday is a holiday called Tish B'Av. And Tish B'Av is the day that both the first and second temple were destroyed. Tish B'Av translates to 9/11.
What?
Oh,
Yes.
wow.
So explain that to me again. What was
All right. Okay, so Freemasonry is all about rebuilding Solomon's Temple. That's like, to sum it up. In every single Masonic lodge, you'll find the twin pillars of Solomon's Temple represent Joaquin and Boaz. Esoterically, represent male and female. So, their whole religion is Baphomet. Baphomet is a symbol of the Knights Templar. And interesting about the word Baphomet is historically, it's believed that Baphomet is another name for Muhammad.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God.
So
Where
whenever
did
we
you
start-
learn that?
Just reading about the Templars. Yeah, it's a
And guys, Muhammad wasn't born with the name Muhammad. His name was Quatham, Qathom. That was Muhammad's real name.
ancient name for Muhammad. So personally, I believe that Islam was created as a adversarial religion to pit against the Christian West, to create that conflict.
Well, there is a discussion that Mohammed is related to Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah, well, that would make sense.
That she actually bragged about that. That she
Really?
Yeah, she said she is related to the Prophet Muhammad, which is very interesting. Now, again, I'm always like live and let live. That's not my necessarily telling people how to live their life or anything like that. But there is some interesting, weird relationships to the British royals who aren't really British royals. They're more of German descent, which is just layer upon layer upon layer of just the inversion that we go through, which is kind of crazy.
Right. And this is where understanding symbolism is so important, because if you notice, in the royal family, all of their symbols are identical to Masonic symbols. And the queen wears a Templar cross right on her crown. And to go back to what we were talking about before, because this I feel like is really, really important. We were talking about the Knights Templar or the protectors of Solomon's Temple. And Solomon's Temple was destroyed on Tish B'Av. They say that it was destroyed, the first temple and the second temple on the same day. And Tish is the 9th day and Av is 11. So it translates to 9/11. And, fast forward to our events, the Twin Towers, if you look at the footprint of the Twin Towers of Ground Zero, it's building number 7 was actually technically called the Solomon Brothers building. And then out in front of the Solomon building number 7, you have these 2 twin pillars representing male, female, Joachim Boaz.
Oh, God. This is
And
nuts.
they started construction for the Twin Towers in 1968, and they fell 33 years later. So the highest degree in Freemasonry is
Wow.
33 degrees.
That's
And
pretty
it's all,
stunning.
you know, Masonry is all Luciferianism.
You're so right. Building 7 World Center, exclusively renovated to accommodate the Salmon Brothers. Holy cow. Salmon
Right. And
Brothers
then
building World Trade Center 7. Holy cow.
and then what I find really, really interesting is that the man who constructed, the architect who built the Twin Towers, I believe they make up their birth and death dates to fit. I believe they truly believe in the power of numbers, right? Because the world was intelligently know that, and they believe if they harness that, then they can, manifest the world that they would like to create. And they perform these rituals over us in this way. So the guy who designed the Twin Towers would have turned 88 years, 9 months, and 11 days on 9/11. The man who owns the Twin Towers, Larry Silverstein, turned 88 years, 9 months, and 11 days the day that the WHO declared Corona a global pandemic. So to sum up what my presentation is to kind of show evidence that 9/11 and Corona and the new king, the coronation of King Charles is all one long Cabalistic ritual that's tied together.
Oh, tell me about it. Guys, real quick, I want to tell you about our good friends, James McMahon and Copy My Crypto. Let me tell you about Copy My Crypto. Listen, everybody, we've seen so many people making ridiculous money in crypto, but did you know it's...
Let's skip the promotions.
So, all right, if you look at the Kabbalah Tree of Life, there are 22 paths. And the top Sephiroth, do you know what the Sephiroths are?
No.
Okay, so there's Sephiroths, there's 10 Sephiroth on the Tree of Life, and these are like points of illumination. And as you work your way through this tree, the very top one on the Tree of Life is called Keter, which means crown. Okay, so I believe that the royal family is actually just symbolic of this Tree of Life. This year, King Charles was crowned, which was 22 years after 9/11. The global pandemic officially ended on the eve of his coronation.
Wow.
And there was a full moon.
Crazy. That's so crazy.
Right. And then you get into the naming of coronavirus. The scientists that named the coronavirus named it in 1968. That's the year they started construction on the Twin Towers. The same year. And it's also a year that, I believe this is all about human DNA, because I believe rebuilding Solomon's temple to a Mason is not just the physical structure. I believe that they are rebuilding Solomon's temple, which is man, because the Bible tells us that we are the temple of God. That's why in Christianity you don't really support the building of a temple, a physical temple, because they're going to carry out sacrifices at this temple, and that's not in Christian ideology.
No, you're totally right.
That's what Christ came to do, was to be the final atonement sacrifice. So there's no more need for sacrifice.
And then we get into, if you believe in the Great Flood and there's scientific evidence of a Great Flood, okay, and there's talk of, see, this is my whole problem I have with so many different people that, are atheists and all this stuff, and when they tend to cite, the reasons they don't believe in God, and it's always Christians. It's always Christian, dogma, Christian, the Bible, all this stuff. But what they don't realize is like the stories that they have problems with are basically told through many different philosophies and disciplines. So if you want to talk about the fallen angels and all that stuff, that's across many different, even Native American philosophies talk about fallen angels. And the flood is scientifically proven to have happened, okay? So we know that happened, some great event happened, destroyed everybody, whatever they want to call it, something driest or whatever it's called. Youngest, driest, or whatever.
Right.
They love to come up with scientific explanations for things that are in the Bible. Like, it's not the firmament, it's, the Van Allen belt, stuff like that. Yeah. That's what they like to do. So, so they'll be like, oh, God didn't flood, asteroids hit the planet and Fugazi and everything, right? That's what they want to do. But if we want to get into a biblical look at the floods, why did God flood the planet? Well, because the fallen angels had come down, mated with the daughters of men, and started creating Nephilims. And these Nephilims, they mated with more daughters of men and destroyed the DNA, God's sacred DNA. So then you get into like what is going on. And it's an argument I had with my friend Brian Callen about mRNA and what that's doing, which is gene splicing, okay, which is gene editing, which is DNA editing. So, like, here we are again with these fallen angel worshipers, these washer worshipers, trying once again to destroy God's DNA. I mean, you guys can sit there and fight it all you want, but it's like you just keep looking for scientific explanation to biblical events, and that's where they are.
So would you be saying that there might be a new flood coming? Like 100%. In a way?
100%. And I forget the name of these people, but they're called like the Jonas or the Jophers or the sons of Jafar or something like that. I saw, and somebody sent to me. Hold on. Let me find my buddy JP. He sent me this. Let me find JP. Okay, here we go. Let me find this real quick. The prodigy of Jove, Gove. They talk about the next great flood.
There is no next great flood.
Go ahead.
And by the way, California and Arizona, bye-bye. California, Nevada, bye-bye. Bye-bye. I'm trying to figure out the land place so I can move the kids to there. But it's like it's in the Midwest. It's the best. You got to go there. Everything else is going to get flooded out.
I mean, you know what else I've been hearing? The seven trumpets. A lot of people have been hearing these noises that make random noises in the middle of nowhere. And if the seven trumpets come by, you get to hear them. That is the prophecy. Is something the apocalypse is coming. So there's a possibility. You've heard of the trumpets, right? You've never heard of people just hearing these random noises in the middle of nowhere. It sounds like it's coming from here, it's coming from nowhere, and it's just these noises. And they're saying it's the seven sounds of the trumpets that is said to be said in the prophecy.
Tino Sanchez from Tinfoil Hat, he talks about how all of this is biblical. That's all in the end of days in the Bible, what's going on right now.
Yeah, yes, I agree. But I also feel like there's another level of manipulation that's going on here, because Masonry plays off the dark adversary. There's light and dark Masonry. So, I mean, everybody's heard the phrase, two wings, one bird, which is, the symbol of the Scottish Rite is the two.
I've never heard that
bird.
before. Two wings, one bird.
I personally believe that Biden is playing this dark adversarial role that is scaring everyone and doing a really good job of it, to the light side of Masonry. And I believe that Trump is their chosen, quote unquote, savior figure. So I believe that Christians are being manipulated to believe that the end of the world is here, and they're kind of primed for a savior figure. And I believe the system is going to try to offer them that savior figure, most likely coming in political form. But this is all part of the very grand deception that's been brewing for hundreds of years, and is just kind of coming to a climax now. And we're living through it.
And we're living through it. It's so crazy.
It's so incredible. Like, people, I know a lot of people, some who follow my work, they feel very depressed and overwhelmed. And, the more things get revealed, you're like, this is, everything is just so unbelievably psychotic. And then you learn that the elite are truly practicing Satanism. And that's a hard thing to process and live with. To go day to day in your normal world like everything's normal, whenever you know that it's not.
You're totally right.
But in my mind, I feel like I'm in an adventure. It's exciting to me because we have so much material to work with. Never before have we been able to piece together this amount of information and expose what's been going on this whole time. So I think it's wonderful. I'm not depressed about it at all.
I think there's a lot that is going down, and I personally believe that these elites, they worship the ruler of
there's only one day old, guys.
Of this realm, which is Satan. That's in the Bible. Satan rules this realm. They worship those people that they've been trapped here. Again, that is across multiple disciplines. Vedic astrology, Hinduism, all talk about the one God trapping these entities in this realm. Okay? And they worship these these fallen angels. And that's why you have so many atheists going, well, if God is love, why does he let this happen to this person and this person and this person? And I get the pain, but it's just super crazy. But God created this realm for consequences. Right. And that's his idea. And it's out of my powers to truly try to understand that. And that sounds like maybe defeatism, but I just think there's a bigger plan here. So people need to understand that. So then you start getting into this depression where all this darkness and all this is going on. And I've always said this forever. It will be dark before there is light. It is always dark before there is light. That's just life. And that this is because nobody is bigger than the rules of the universe, except for God. And God created these rules and these universe, and the rule is love. Okay, and those who give love receive love, and those who put out pain receive pain, and it's all coming to a head right now. And that's what I truly do believe, that we're going to go through this craziness, and then we're going to get to an amazing place. That's what I hope. We'll see if I'm wrong, or it could be the great ending, and then those who God's chosen people go to heaven, and then we'll see what happens.
Bye-bye. It's good to see you, mate.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I very much agree. And I'm also really interested in the theory that we are living in the little season. I don't know if you're aware of that phrase, but in the Bible, it speaks of a time where Satan is released from the bottomless pit and is allowed to rule over the earth for one last time before God comes and banishes him forever. And I believe that's the time that we are in. But it's very controversial because it also requires the belief that Jesus Christ has already returned long ago, which people who follow this train of thought would say that Jesus' return came in the millennial reign, which would have been what they call the Dark Ages. So, it's interesting to me that all this incredible architecture and, you see these cathedrals that are just mind-boggling, and a lot of this stuff came out of the Dark Ages. Well, wouldn't it be just perfect for them to invert the
Pretty sure ancient Rome had equally well-built temples and houses as well. So suggesting in the Middle Ages their cathedrals were something new is not really being honest here. I don't believe in that 1,000 years being the Dark Ages. I don't believe that timeline.
the time that Jesus was actually on earth and call it the Dark Ages
Nah,
as a way
disagree.
to manipulate where people believe we are in biblical prophecy. And it really
Love you back, boss.
yeah, it explains a lot to me, because whenever you truly understand what's going on here with the elite, it's so clearly demonically inspired. You can't sum up what Jeff Bezos and Gates are doing by just greed. There's something more to it.
I totally agree
what
with that.
drives them.
So what year do you think it really is?
I think we're like 1,000 years off.
1,000 years? Is it 3,023 or is it 1023?
Yeah, backwards.
I've heard that.
That 1,000-year reign, doesn't Christ do that with a rod of iron? So how's the Middle Ages ruled by Christ with a rod of iron? They ran around burning witches at the stake.
Before they've added 1,000 years, that's really 1023.
Yes, yeah. But this is all just things to contemplate.
Do you think they made that? Do you think they made the eras longer in general, or you think they just added years? Do you get what I'm trying to say? You think they made like the medieval times a little longer, or
do you think they're speeding up time?
Yeah,
like, because everyone thinks like everybody. It's so funny when you look at pictures from the past, like a 22-year-old from the 1800s looks like it could be the parent of a 22-year-old today. But I'm wondering if the days and times are different, that they're not actually the same 22-year-old. That maybe they sped up time, and that the 22-year-old today is really an 8-year-old from way back in the day.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought.
10-year-old or 12-year-old or 15-year-old, something.
Yeah, I think I think
it's more the other way around.
People believe that time is moving faster. It feels that way to most people. But we're also much more aware of what time it is all the time, because we have these smartphone devices, and we're just looking at the clock a lot more than we were doing 100 years ago. So that could contribute to us feeling like time's moving faster, and our days are just so busy. That might make things feel like time's moving faster, or time might actually be moving faster. I don't know.
Johnny thinks time's moving faster, that they're stealing time.
Well, maybe.
Johnny's got AIDS, so he can't talk right now.
Oh,
yeah, Johnny's got full-blown AIDS, so he can't talk right now. But he thinks they're stealing time. and that's why everybody the days seem to be flying quicker and quicker and quicker.
Right. Well, Saturn is known as the god of time, and that's their god. So
yeah, Time Magazine, all that stuff. And it's so funny because we haven't done a good Saturn show in a long time, but it's like all people just have no clue what is going on. Like when everyone is everything a conspiracy, 100% everything is a conspiracy. It just seems overwhelming at first. Nobody's asking you to understand all of it at one time. Just start really simple. It's like they say this with jujitsu, right? Like jujitsu seems like Chinese when you show up, but as you start to slowly do it over time, you start to understand the moves and why everybody does what they do. So it's like that's conspiracy. Start with a simple thing like JFK. Now there's layers of JFK, but just get to the point where you go, oh, it's not Lee Harvey Oswald. It was most likely the U.S. government with a couple other countries, either
And the
assassinating the
mafia.
president or giving the perception of assassination, and to cause mass trauma on a global level.
right. Yeah, I think for a lot of people, 9/11 is that little event that lets them know that something that we're not being told the accurate story of what's going on here, building number 7 specifically.
That's Solomon's brothers.
Solomon's Temple.
Blew my mind. Just blew my mind. And then you go, there's layers upon layers upon layers to 9/11, right? Like they had, like when you look at the JFK assassination, regardless of whatever's happening there, okay, they had to make sure that got pulled off. And whatever, whether it's JFK faking his assassination or the powers that be assassinating him and the Rothschild, I think her name is Elizabeth or whatever Rothschild.
Hey, Shawnee, good to see you, buddy.
Is sitting right there watching the whole thing, surrounded by CIA agents. I mean, it's absolutely incredible to me. Okay, absolutely incredible. But 9/11 is a great example of that as well. Like the layers upon layers upon layers that they made sure that thing there was nothing left standing, which is right. Operation Northwood. They probably flew drones into those buildings. They laid down the foundation of terrorists hanging out with strippers, doing coke, making bad decisions, and deciding to fly planes that they weren't actually capable of flying, which becomes nonlinear warfare, right? So now everyone's arguing about whether the terrorists could actually fly those planes. That begins to divide us. Then they fly the drones into the plane perfectly. Now we get the holograms. These are holograms. Then you have the dancing Israelis who had chances to fill up the elevators. They were supposed to be there to fix the elevators for 4 years. For 4 years. That's a lot of time to line that thing up with fucking explosives, okay? So they line that up with explosives. So then they explode that shit. And then guess what? Now they're hitting it with fucking frequencies from weather to evaporate the motherfucker. So that's, I mean, layers upon layers upon layers upon layers.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. And, just 9/11 is such an interesting number related to the occult and masonry. I don't know if you know, but the first victim of 9/11 was
they've done a little bit of it, Shawnee. They've done a little bit of a numerology with Trump. They haven't gone right into it yet, though.
Israeli, who was an ex-IDF member, who was sitting in seat 9, flight 11, and the pilot that was, supposedly the terrorist.
Did you just say? What did you say?
It gets way, way better than that. Okay, so, all right. So it all breaks down to astrology, and we can get into that further. But Putin invaded the Ukraine 9 months and 11 days after Israel's founding date. Okay, in the year 2021. The first official victim of 9/11 was an Israeli sitting in seat 9, flight 11. He was supposedly born on Israel's founding date, May 14. On the day that Putin invaded Ukraine, a never before seen footage of 9/11 went viral on YouTube. Did you guys see that?
No, what was it?
There was never before seen footage of 9/11 that went viral on YouTube, made national headlines the day that Putin invaded the Ukraine. And it's had like over 6 million views now. And it was a footage of the second plane hitting the tower. So the man who was the first official victim of 9/11, his name is Daniel Lewin, and he was supposedly killed by a terrorist named Satan. S-A-T-A-M. Sounds a lot like Satan.
Oh,
You know,
are you
the great adversary in Kabbalah. And then on top of that, do you remember the miracle passport that was found?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It belonged to Satan. The terrorist who killed the first official victim of 9/11.
Oh my God! What?
I mean, what a tall tale that is, you know.
Oh my! I have to look this up. Passport.
And it's in like pristine condition. So the plane explodes this enormous fireball, and somehow this passport, you know.
Oh shit! It is.
Oh
Magic.
man! You're told.
And not just that, the planes that hit 9/11, their black boxes were destroyed, which apparently even a nuclear bomb can't destroy a black box. But the black boxes in both planes were destroyed.
Fully right.
Look at his name.
Oh.
Yet the passports weren't destroyed. So that's just doesn't make sense.
Holy cow!
That.
Holy cow!
Yeah.
Dude,
And
that
in
is nuts.
Kabbalah, or Freemasonry, they play off, you know, like the sun, the light, and the dark. Saturn was considered the furthest, darkest planet at the in ancient times, so therefore it was equated with Satan. It's a completely different ideology. You know, it's in occultism. In Christianity, basically, you understand that man is flawed and we all have a dark side and we have to deal with it. But you attempt to minimize it. Well, in their worldview, and this is why it's all kept secret because it's so nutty. In their worldview, you work to foster your dark side and you work to use the power. So it's all about balancing. Like all of their symbols represent this yin yang, male and female, Baphomet, balancing of the male and female energy. That's how you reach godhood, is by whenever you can balance your wicked and your good. You know, it's Aleister Crowley's "Do What Thou Wilt." And I personally believe that the elite are all Thelemites. They're following Crowley.
Hey guys, real quick, I gotta tell you about our friends at Factor. That's right. With the busy fall season already in swing, you might be looking for wholesome, convenient meals. Along the lines of that.
Well, I think that Crowley just carried the spirit of Antichrist, and he shows up in all kinds of figures. Like before him was Helena Blavatsky, which the UN's religious branch was all based on her religion, which was satanic. Her and Alice Bailey. So,
prayers for Tom Horn, Diane. He's a very good warrior of God. prayers for him and prayers for his family too.
You know, if you look at the events of 9/11, Aleister Crowley's religion is called Thelema, but it's known as 93. So
Good night, Phil. God bless, bro.
93 is shows up all the time in pop culture related to Satanism. Most significantly, you guys probably saw that, you know, this one called Marina Abramovich.
Yes, like the woman who just got named the spokesperson for the Ukraine, which is insanity.
Exactly.
And I have a theory I want to talk to you about too after that.
Okay, well, I believe they're using this. Her work is just so blatant. I believe they're using this as part of the propaganda to further divide the left and the right. And they're trying to create the narrative that the left is satanic and evil, and the right is being conflated with saving the children, stopping human trafficking, and is going to come in and fix all the horrific damage that Biden has done. So they're trying to make Biden and everything Biden is involved in to be as bad as possible. And this is what I believed would happen before Biden even got into office. I believe that the figures that they put in place as president would do exactly what Biden has done, to scare people. But Marina Abramovich, 4 months before, she's from the Ukraine, by the way.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Right, the Ukraine is very significant to our story. 4 months before Putin invaded the Ukraine, Abramovich unveiled a piece of public art that was called the Crying Wall of Crystals. And it was supposed to be an extension of the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem. So that ties us back to Solomon's temple. Marina Abramovich also wears a Templar cross, and she lives in a 6-pointed star house.
Is that the artwork?
That's the artwork. Now, occultists believe in harnessing the power of energy in crystals and this kind of thing, you know. So
that guy's haircut needs some crystal help. Jeez. So
the thing about this wall is there's 93 crystals.
Oh my!
And Marina Abramovich is associated. She's at Y93. You know, she's associated with Jay-Z, who is a Thelemite. You know, he pretty openly demonstrates his interest in Aleister Crowley. And Marina Abramovich is hosted by an art gallery who the art gallery also hosts the artist that painted Obama's really creepy presidential portrait. You know, the one where he's sitting in front of leaves?
Yeah.
Well, that portrait has a cryptic 666 over his head.
No way.
I'll look that up, bro. Look that up. Obama sitting leaves.
Yeah, I think if you type 666, he'll come in. I have one of those images that shows it.
I mean, if we did Johnny, I don't know if Johnny's still here. He's
right on board, Voss. No astrology, completely correct.
Not feeling well.
I'm looking it up. I got it right here.
Okay.
But when conservatives point to Marina Abramovich, they call her satanic. And, you know, we have this photo of her standing with Jacob Rothschild in front of a painting called Satan Summoning His Legions. Now, how do you
where's the 666?
You know, how do you excuse that? Like, why did they do that? To me, it seems pretty obvious that they are trying to paint the narrative that she is, to equate the left and everything the left is doing with Satanism, whenever conservatives don't actually understand what Satanism is. I've seen it shared many times that Marina lives in a pentagram house. But whenever you actually research the house, it's publicized that it's a 6-pointed star, which is the seal of Solomon.
Hillary Clinton's a big fan of Abramovich as well.
And then she wears a Templar cross, which is another reference to Solomon. Okay, so I believe she is a Thelemite that is involved in Masonry. There's tons and tons of Masonic symbolism surrounding her work. And it's really important to distinguish between this, because whenever you understand what Satanism truly is, you figure out and learn that it's not just one side of the political realm. It's both, which is scary people.
Yeah, I mean, because we live in a time, we're entering a time where there are no rules. And like, I have a bunch of people who are my age and older that refuse to understand that the Democratic Party is the same as the Republican Party. And there's people who think the Republican Party is saviors when it's like just as bad as the Democratic Party. They just play the game. It's like back and forth. So let me ask you a question here. What are your thoughts on Zelensky talking about how, the Ukraine is the new Israel. Maria Abramovich is a spokesperson. Is there any argument that maybe they're trying to bring back Khazaria?
Oh, possibly. A good city to look up is a city called Astana, Kazakhstan. In my mind, it is the most Masonic place on earth. It's unbelievable.
How do you spell that? Because neither him nor I can spell what. How do you spell that?
It's Astana. Type in
Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan. You have to look this up because it's mind blowing. The capital city.
Russia's in control of Kazakh. I can't even say it now. Kazakhstan's area. They got control over the area. Kazakhstan. I can't even say it now. Kazakhstan.
Yeah, here it is. Here's the spelling. Estonia. Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan. Is that it?
Okay.
Wow.
Okay. No. Right. You see the twin pillars?
Yep.
Okay. It's starting to glare, guys. I'm going to readjust
giant twin pillars. There's a giant pyramid. That image right there. This other tall structure is symbolic of the tree of life. So that's symbolic of the tree of life right there.
Wow.
And this is where the Pope has been meeting with other world leaders in his efforts to create this new one world religion. And, the Jesuits the Knights Templar were created by the Catholic Church. It's a military order created by the Pope. And it has since been
expanded.
Now it's just associated with Freemasonry. So I visit these locations myself to see them for myself and take photographs of them. So I toured the Scottish Rite headquarters, and I toured Washington's Masonic Memorial, and the very, very top of this structure is a floor totally dedicated to the Knights Templar. And the tour guide told me that, what is her name? Natalie Portman had requested to sleep there because she was so fascinated with it. So whenever you go and look at these actual sites for yourself and you understand, you have a base level understanding of symbolism, you see that it's telling you a story of a plan. And it involves a pandemic that, very, very similar to what we find ourselves in. And this would probably be a good entry point to relate this back to 9/11. You know, coronavirus is named after corona occurs during a total solar eclipse. So the eclipse is a very, very significant symbol in Masonry because it's yet again Baphomet. It's male merging with female, dark merging with light. We are currently in between two historic total solar eclipses. These two eclipses will form a giant X over the United States. In the center point of this X is a town known as Little Egypt. The first eclipse occurred in 2017. The next eclipse is going to occur on April 8th, 2024. The most interesting thing about these eclipses are there are 6 years, 6 months, 6 weeks, and 6 days between the eclipses.
What are you talking about? What?
There hasn't been a equivalent eclipse since the Spanish flu of 1918. And here we are in between these two eclipses with another pandemic. Now, the very first vaccine for the coronavirus, which refers to an eclipse, was given at the exact halfway point between the two eclipses.
Wow.
On December 14, 2020. That's whenever they started giving out this shot. Exactly between the eclipses.
When was the first eclipse again?
August 21st, 2017.
Yeah.
The second eclipse in 2024. And on December 14th, 2020, that was exactly between the two eclipses, they started giving out the COVID vaccine. Now, because I know these guys are so super obsessed with numerology, I wanted to know how old Donald Trump was whenever he turned 666 months.
Hi, Barry, good to see you. I just wondered what inspired her to go and look these numbers up. Surely she got some inspiration from the Holy Ghost.
It was the same date of 2001 when the twins came down.
No.
God.
December 14th. He turned exactly 666 months.
Hold on. On 9/11, he turned 666 months?
No, in 2001, on December 14 is whenever they rolled out the coronavirus jabs.
Okay.
They started giving out the shots.
Okay.
But in 2001, December 14, Donald Trump turned exactly 666 months.
Oh my God.
And on top of that, if you look up the vaccine, the customer service number, both Moderna and Pfizer have 666 in their customer service numbers.
What?
If you want to call Larry Silverstein Properties, the guy who owned the Twin Towers, he has 666 in his phone number. The construction company that built the Twin Towers also built 666 Fifth Avenue that Jared Kushner bought. And he bought it for the numerology because he's a Kabbalist. And
Wow.
because I don't pick on Biden as much as I pick on Trump. And the reason is because Biden's not fooling anybody. You know, nobody's going to be supporting Biden. Biden doesn't have influence over us. Donald Trump.
That's a good point. She ain't go after Biden because everyone's already on the Biden, but she goes after Trump because everyone thinks he's on the side of the right. This girl's rather intelligent.
Because Donald Trump looks very appealing right now.
All this is theater, right? Do you think it's, I mean, like the most
It's
elaborate
just theater.
After Q, I was like, dude, they could pull off anything. They could pull off any elaborate prank hoax, whatever they want after that.
Right.
I mean, it's
I believe it's definitely. theater. Like I believe that Donald
Theater.
Trump was born. His mother was Elizabeth Christ Trump, who died on 6/6/66, June 6th of 66.
Well, but so does Trump know he's in on it? Like he completely understands that that's his part, that's his job.
Yes, I believe he does. I believe he was born to do this manipulation. You know,
No way,
Operation
really,
Warp Speed
Sean?
is his doing.
I mean, he did help with
and
the
if you-
January 6th as well. The January 6th, he did participate and make people go in there, which made it, yeah.
Yes, and if you look at the logo for Operation Warp Speed, it's a cube. And if you notice, Donald Trump always has his hand in this position, making the triangle, which is the symbol for female energy. Well, Donald Trump has a very aggressive male, strong personality. So I believe that's why he holds his hands in the female personality, because he's then merging his male energy with female energy, creating godhood. And if you look up Trump Tower has this same down angled triangle worked into the design. And it's also made up of
Diane, there's so much numerology out there, it does get confusing.
6 levels on each side of the triangle. So there's a cryptic 666 in Trump Tower in that. Do you see the little right there? Yeah.
Yeah, the bushes.
See, there's 6 steps on each side of that triangle.
No way.
Yeah.
And Trump Tower is 664 feet tall, and I guarantee it's real 666. You know,
Oh, I mean,
seems a bit much for coincidence.
Yeah, I mean, look at that. There are 2.
Now, whenever Trump was running for office, he has a team, and everyone surrounding him were wearing
Purple and
little
yellow.
upside down triangles on
Purple
their
and yellow.
suits. And people in the media were asking questions of what that meant. They didn't have any, the excuse was it was just a way to identify who was with Trump. But I don't believe that. I believe that is his occult symbol for manifesting that type of energy. Because these occultists believe this stuff, you know. Like if you watch this last Super Bowl with Rihanna, at the very end of her performance, she held up the triangle of manifestation over the audience.
And they didn't show it. They didn't show it on TV though.
They didn't show it on TV.
No, you can see it on people's TikToks and people's, like, it was more like a Instagram thing, but the TV took that off.
Yeah, and she has Isis tattooed on her chest. And Isis is the wife of Osiris. Now, I had a really, really strange thing happen to me because I toured Washington's Masonic Memorial. And because I toured it, I had to give them my name and address, which I wasn't super excited about when I did it because it was worth it. And coincidentally, I got a piece of mail from them.
I do know the barcodes had
They were
666 in them as well.
Of their cornerstone laying, which occurred in 1923. So 100 years later was their celebration of this cornerstone event. Now the cornerstone is just a cube. Okay, so it's symbolic of their cube worship, which is a perversion of the Bible, because in the Bible, Christ is known as our cornerstone. And the occult perverts, flips everything that's in the Bible. Okay.
Yeah.
So in Masonry, the cornerstone laying event comes from Freemasonry. Now get this. After Rihanna does her thing, where she's also pregnant, which is symbolic of the goddess Ishtar. Ishtar is also known as Ayana, so it's spelled almost exactly alike. right after she does this, the very first commercial after that is a woman.
Rihanna, Ayana.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And she has ISIS tattooed on her chest.
Johnny, I've done a stream about the Trump Tower and 666 and a Temple to Bow. I've done a stream on it a couple of times.
So right after she flashes that upside that triangle over the audience, the very first commercial is a woman representing some sort of like a flag football league, and she's wearing number 33. Okay, so just a couple days after Rihanna performs, she shares her birth date with the 100th anniversary of the Cornerstone laying ritual at Washington's Masonic Memorial.
So, and they know these dates, or they just be doing what they're told?
No. They definitely know these dates. Like George Washington became president on April 30. That's whenever the Church of Satan was founded.
Wow.
That's when Hitler died. And then if you look at the Church of Satan, if you go into their website, top satanic numbers are 9, 11, Baphomet. And of course, there is a degree in the Church of Satan called a MAGA, MAGA.
What?
And MAGA in almost every language translates to magic or some variation of the word magician. And I believe that Trump truly is a, that's what these guys believe. They believe they can manipulate through energy. That's what's taught in the highest levels of Freemasonry. They all believe that they're wizards. Sorcerers.
But let me ask you something. Do you think you can manipulate energy?
I think that that's like a yes or no answer, because I believe that we are all channelers. So we're either going to channel. Personally, I'm Christian, so I believe we're either channeling the good God from the Bible, or we're going to channel the opposite of that, which is the devil. And these folks truly believe that it's the pathway to enlightenment is learning how to balance both the dark and light in this world. So I believe that the devil works on a reward system. So if you believe in manifestation, and you start heading down this pathway, this new age pathway, which is kind of like a slippery slope, I believe that the devil gives us little rewards along the way where things kind of confirm your efforts. And it's ultimately just tricks that the devil's play. But by the time you're a 30th degree Freemason and you have done this practice, it's been confirmed in your mind that what you're doing actually works. So it's hard to answer, because yes, I believe it actually works. I believe that these folks can really do things that would blow our minds, but I also believe that it's the trick of the devil, which just gets people. Occultism is very, very attractive and appealing because there is a lot of truth to it. And that's one reason why Masonry is so prolific, is because you start getting into these degrees, you start learning about the world and things about the world that are very true that the average citizen has no idea about. Like, for instance, that there is actually a real pattern and design to the stars. So if you go into Washington's Masonic Memorial, there's 2 pillars sitting on a chair that he sat in. And on each of these pillars,
Who's he?
George Washington.
Okay.
Each of these pillars, there's a globe sitting on top of the pillars. And one is a globe of the earth, and the other one is a globe representing the zodiac. Okay, so this speaks to
I never
their
knew that.
religion
Wow.
following astrology. And this would be a good place to kind of pivot back to the royal family, because I believe that they are like the top of Freemasonry. The Queen's cousin is the current Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of England. He's basically the top person on all of Freemasonry. So all of the royal family has been involved in Masonry all along. That's what I believe it is. Not long before the Queen died, you may have seen a video that she celebrated her Jubilee, and they were outside, and there was this strange box with a light on top of it. She goes over and hits this box. It illuminates, and then there are 2 or 3 strands of lights strung out across the grand landscape that connect to a tree, which symbolized the tree of life. So this, if you look it up, it looks just like DNA connected to the tree of life.
So the tree of life, you mean with the bubbles, the bubble, all the way up. Is that even?
Right. Yes. Yes, I believe that it is. I believe that it was created as a pathway to communicate with demonic entities.
Oh my!
I believe that's how.
I know nothing anymore. I have no clue what the fuck's going on. I have none. I'm just a windsock at this point.
No, you're not.
I'm so
okay.
lost.
So, all right. So, so the Queen, I had a feeling she was going to die in 2022 because of this. The day she died was 911 days after the pandemic was declared, which was also 7,666 days after 9/11.
So,
You know.
Oh my God.
did she say 7,600?
I mean, how in the world could that be a coincidence?
Oh, okay.
So you said that
7,600.
there's a proper way to worship the good God. Is that what you said earlier? Along the lines of that? What is that? How do you do that?
Well, I believe the story of Christ is true. And I believe the occultists believe it too, because I believe that they are warring with the God of the Bible. In the book called The History of Freemasonry, Albert Mackey writes that Masons were the original builders of the Temple of Solomon and the Tower of Babel. And what a thing to claim. The Tower of Babel is the structure created to kill God ultimately. And I believe that that is what they are attempting to do now with the knowledge that they are obtaining through their practices, which I believe is real. I believe that's how, people come to the conclusion that we have to be living in a simulation, because they're like, how do they line everything up so perfectly? Well, I believe that this is all demonically inspired. And Kabbalists, what a Kabbalist does is learn about this pattern that's been here all along. And they set their rituals to it. A perfect example of this is President Biden. We've lived through several really significant celestial events. One of the most significant was the great Saturn-Jupiter conjunction, which occurred in 2021. This also fell on the winter solstice, so it was the darkest day of the year. And it was this historic Saturn conjunction, which hasn't occurred in 800 years. Well, this was the day that President Biden chose to take his first vaccine at exactly 322.
Oh my God.
And you know what 322 is, 322 skull and bones, right?
Oh man.
Well, not only that, but this was also 9 months and 11 days after they declared the global pandemic on 3/11. Now, the reason why 3/11, before COVID hit, I was very alarmed that they were planning an event. I took social media and I told my friends that they're planning an event for 3/11/2020. And that's the day that declared the pandemic. And the reason why, the many reasons why I thought that, but one interesting aspect of what it symbolizes is 9/11 on the wheel of the year. The polar opposite of 9/11
Oh, it's made.
is 3/11.
Yeah, wow.
Okay, so it's like it's opposite. So you have that connection. And 3/11, of course, is 3 times 11, which is 33. Which, by the way, is Joe's text number 3033. And you know, the conservatives were sharing the meme that if you divide 2020 by 666, you get Joe Biden's text number.
What?
Which, you know, that's all they hear is the 666. They don't recognize the 33 because they don't understand that Satanism and Freemasonry and all this, and you know, the Jesuits and the Catholic Church is all part of one cult, just wearing different hats. All they hear is Satanism, so they've been primed to equate the left with, you know, evil. And they don't understand that it's actually the same cult that Donald Trump is involved in, right?
There's so much chaos.
But, you know, the interesting,
What's going on?
the thing about the Templar cross, what is the Templar cross? Okay, so it's just a cross like this, and it represents the equinox. 322 is the spring equinox. All right, and I just learned this. This blew me away because this is something I suspected all along. When they switched over from the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar, they had to skip 10 days. So 3/11 was the original spring equinox. 3/11 and 9/11 were the original equinox. All right, so this is what is represented on a Templar's cross. And, you know, the person that influenced Donald Trump the most in his life was a Knights Templar. And if you look at the Sound of Freedom, which I believe is more Masonic propaganda to usher people to the light side of Masonry, the guy, Jim, what's his last name? Chavez?
Hold on. What did the one guy had some weird kind of symbolism on his shirt?
Yeah, he had little square compasses on his tie.
Yeah.
But more significantly than that, in my mind, is the guy who played Tim Ballard in the movie named Jim. I forget his last name. He wears a specific Knights Templar cross. Okay, I went and watched the movie because I wanted to see the symbolism. Wow. At the very end of the movie, Jim comes out with a special message, and he's wearing this cross. And it can't be mistaken for anything else. It is a specific Knights Templar cross, and he's also one of the guys who covers one eye all the time, you know, like all the celebrities do. And Sound of Freedom was produced by Angel Studios. Angel Studios also produced The Chosen. Well, the guy who played in The Chosen came out and openly admitted he was a Knights Templar. He posted it on his social media. And the problem is Christian, because we are so uneducated on what all of these things are, you know, the Christians hear the Knights Templar and they might Google it and be like, oh, well, they're the protectors of Saul.
Just a thing on the series, The Chosen and the Catholics. The Shroud of Turin, They done a forensic science impression of what the Shroud of Turin's Jesus would look like. And it used to be a different face, but now when they do it, the new one is it has a guy from The Chosen who plays Jesus. It really looks like him, like about 80% looks like him. It's so dishonest, guys. It really is dreadful.
This temple sounds nice. You know, they recognize Solomon's temple from the Bible.
Wow,
so
46.
they just kind of equate it to some sort of, it has to be some sort of Christian organization, whenever it is absolutely not. You know, Jacques de
Diane, I'll finish with one on Trump on the link you just posted, that channel. I found a pretty interesting one, so I'll finish with that. Still got a while to go here yet, though.
Molay was the 23rd and final Grand Master of the Knights Templar. And he was, you probably know the story of Jacques de Molay, who was burned at the stake for practicing basically the same stuff that Aleister Crowley was doing. You know, he was doing dark occultism. And that's why he was killed, if you believe the story. But the interesting thing is if you Google what day Jacques de Molay died, Google will tell you he died on 3/11.
So 3/11 is the real 9/11.
3/11, it's just connecting 3/11 to 9/11, which I believe the two events are symbolic of this belief of merging the pillars, and, you know, messing with man's DNA, because I believe the pillars represent the double helix.
So do you think that Lucifer is Satan? Or do you think Lucifer is a different entity than Satan?
Does it matter?
No, I believe it's the same entity. I believe Lucifer and Satan are the same entity. It's just they're worshiping the light and dark aspect of Satan.
Interesting.
But whenever you get into Masonry, they lie about all of this. You know, they purposefully lie to the low-level initiates about what all the symbolism means. No, I mean, of course they would. And so the people who rise to the top of Freemasonry are the people who are the most compromised.
I just realized something,
You know.
and I just want to take a moment to recognize that Xavier Guerrero learned how to spell something better than I did, and as much crap as I give him all the time, he got Astania right, and I got it completely wrong. So respect to Xavier Guerrero. But you know,
Babbel's working. Babel.
You did great, bro. You did great. Respect to you, man. I have to give you your flowers when you are correct. And the reason I bring that up because I eventually found it. And you know, we live in the inverted reality, right?
Right.
So just think about what Borat tried to tell everybody about Kazakhstan. That
Exactly.
it's a bunch of sheep herding inbred idiots.
Oh.
And then you look at their actual what's going on in their country. It's the exact opposite of that.
I am so glad you brought that up. I have thought that exact same thought. I'm like, I can't believe this guy. He's got us thinking that this is like a dumpster
Holy
country,
cow,
you know,
man.
and it's the exact opposite.
It is
Like,
the great
Yeah,
inversion. It is the inversion. He just completely duped all Americans to think we're making fun of sheep herding cousin humpers. In reality, look at their whole cities, man.
Right, that's where the Pope is meeting with all the world leaders.
Dude, oh my
Wow. 3D chess. This is like 3D
This
chess.
is like 5D chess. This is like 90D chess. It's all an inversion.
And this is why I love streaming, guys. Look how much we learn with these sort of videos.
Yes, okay, and another layer of proof of what's going on here is, you know, it all has to do with astrology. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to explain this.
Yeah, Barry, she does have a bit of a South in
2022
accent.
was the year of the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. Okay. The last time this happened was in 1856. A very long time. All right, let me tell you everything that happened in 1856. First of all, imagine 1856 in your mind. It's a cryptic 9/11. Okay, 1818 is 9, 56 is 11.
Oh my
Okay.
God.
Let me tell you everything that happened in 1856.
What?
If you, the castle that the Queen died in was established in 1856. The Russell Trust Association.
Okay, and the castle that Queen Elizabeth died in was called Balmoral Castle. Bal, B-A-A-L, moral. So Bal's morals. So that's pretty interesting.
Which is where we get Skull and Bones, was founded in 1856. Let's say there's a whole bunch of these.
No, I mean,
Okay.
dude.
All right, here's the
presidential election. The presidential election as well.
No, I don't know about that, but
No.
you know the image Baphomet. Baphomet was first drawn by Eliphas Levi in 1856.
What?
And Baphomet is a symbolic representation of their dualistic religion. That's all it is representing dualism. And I could not believe this. When I was recently in Washington, D.C., I went to Alexandria. That's where Washington's Masonic Memorial is. Well, really, in that same city is where Werner von Braun is buried.
What?
Wow.
You know? So I went to see his grave site in person. And I just had, I don't know, I just think of these things because I know how significant dates are. The cemetery Werner von Braun is buried in was established 1856. So it's like, it's unbelievable because that's the Saturn Neptune conjunction. This great war with Russia invading the Ukraine happens in the year of this conjunction. In the Super Bowl, the commercials for it, Arnold Schwarzenegger played Zeus, which is Jupiter, okay? And in the same commercial, Neptune makes an appearance. So you have Jupiter and Neptune in a Super Bowl commercial in the year of a historic Jupiter and Neptune conjunction.
That's so crazy. I looked up everything that happened in 1856. One of the things, Jupiter and Neptune conjunction was last seen in 1856.
Yeah. Yep. And Arnold Schwarzenegger, if you know his family history, his father was an SS Nazi. Okay. And he wears a skull and bones, he wears a skull necklace. And I believe it's in reference to Skull and Bones. And the very first concentration camp was opened on 3/22, 1933. And the symbol that the SS wears on their hat is a skull and bones. So I believe it's all just one, I believe that the Nazis were part of this satanic dark arts. He was like a dark adversarial figure.
So this might be like on a whole different tangent, but satanic wise, I don't know if you know Kat Von D, but she just became a Christian. She just got baptized. Do you think there's a reason for that? Because I mean, she was the main person for goth and emo, and she just became Christian, which is great. But it's like, where did that come from? I was surprised. I was like, what the fuck?
Well, I don't want to ever say someone's conversion is not real or anything like that, but I'm also really suspicious on how the Christian conservatives are being manipulated right now. There's a lot of Christian propaganda with these movies, that are very clearly being produced by Freemasons. So I'm, I don't want to say that it's not genuine, but I'm like proceed with caution, know, because I feel like one of their strongest weapons is manipulating the Christian conservatives in this country for whatever their next little move is. You have to have a strong, great leader to have the population follow that leader into something. People are not going to follow Biden anywhere, but people.
So you're saying they're corralling everybody into Trump,
right? Yeah.
Which I've felt before. Like all this is theory. He just keeps beating these cases, and they just keep losing, and it's just like, I mean, nothing's sticking, nothing.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that Christ has had 5 mortal wounds, and I believe Trump has how many now? 4. So I bet you he'll get one last one.
Whoa.
And it's it's all tip of the spear. Christ was killed. The final wound was a spear, and Trump Tower is in the shape of a spear. And Sound of Freedom, Tim Ballard's, his organization is called Tip of the Spear. So I believe it's symbolic of them believe that they are going to kill the God of the Bible. Ultimately, that's the long. People need to zoom out, like way out, get things in perspective. I believe the United States was created to ultimately build this third temple. So,
well, El Dorado, who is
Diane, I found that Trump Tower a temple to bow, so I'll play that when this hangs up.
Got me the ball rolling into Christianity for me. Talks about the Bible, talks about a war between the pagans and the lost tribes of Israel.
Oh, isn't that cool, Shawnee?
Is the Israel, the UK, England, and America versus the pagans, and the pagans win in this story through the Bible, and it's very interesting. I got to ask you something before we go, Susan. How do you live in this society when you know all this stuff? I get asked that all the time, but you're even deeper than I am. And how do you function in this world of deception?
Well, I would have to give credit to my faith for all of that. But whenever I was first discovering all this stuff before the pandemic hit, it hit me really hard because I had to really calibrate, and it's a lot to process. So I struggled with it quite a bit around 2020. But since then, I have, become friends with a handful of folks who have a similar worldview, and we are very supportive of one another. And I've learned more and figured out more, and I'm just I know what the ultimate goal is, and I feel like it's a spiritual war. And I feel like I know where my soul is going whenever all this wraps up. So I find peace in that. But I just basically look at it as an adventure, because there's not a day that's boring. Everything is just so fascinating to me, and
so that's
really
that's why she's good at it, because it's all fascinating to her, and that's why we love watching this, because it's fascinating to us as well. So it's win-win for everyone.
Helping others see what's going on here, because I feel like I've been given.
Yeah, Diane, it was done over 3 3-month blocks. So it's $300 per 3 months. And she still can't even swim. I can't believe it. I learned to swim in 1 day.
Little bit of a gift of understanding, and I've been able to, in my own way, kind of share with others what's going on here. But I do like to de-emphasize the fear aspect, because I believe they want us to be afraid. You know, the conservatives are just totally eat up with anxiety over what Biden is doing. You know, they feel like this country is just going into the dumpster because of all of everything Biden's
Do you
doing.
not think it's going into the dumpster?
Well,
Diane, if she doesn't know how to swim next time she comes up and the weather's warm, I'll teach her, and I'll also teach my grandson, because he's only 5 years old and he hasn't gone near a pool yet. But I learned to swim when I was in 2nd class, which made me 8 years old. So I'll teach him myself if I have to.
I do ultimately, because I believe that the United States was created as an atonement sacrifice. In the Kabbalah, the text for Kabbalah is the Zohar, and the Zohar prophesies that Edom, which is equated to the United States, will fall before their messianic figure arrives. So I do believe that the plan is to collapse the United States eventually. But you know, I've accepted all of this, and
how do you prepare?
I prepare by trying to keep myself healthy. You know, I that's my main message is for people to tap out of their system, to not eat their food, not take their vaccines, to minimize how you spend your money with them, to try to be more self-sustaining in many ways as you can. I'm not like a prepper. I don't believe that there's any way that we can plan for whatever is the next chapter. I mean, I have the bare minimum.
That's exactly right, Shawnee.
I really don't think
that's how you teach them. Put some floaties on their arms, hold them by the belly, and teach them the dog paddle as well. You can't go wrong.
Anyone can prepare for what's coming, but I'm not anxious about it. I've just kind of accepted it. So
it's interesting times, man. Interesting times. Gotta get right with God. Gotta get right.
Yes. Yeah. Ultimately, I think that's what we all have to do is just, prepare yourself spiritually, because that's what they're after anyway.
Have you ever heard that the day of rest is Friday and not Sunday?
No.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that?
I'm not rigid on that kind of stuff. I just try to stick to 1 day a week where I rest. And
I gotta get to that.
I work for myself.
Sundays, Fridays. I mean, I gotta work.
It usually ends up being a Sunday, which maybe
I don't go on the road, and I just love the Lord. Love the Lord. Stay home on Fridays. Do a Saturday early show. Hope and pray. Dude, interesting, Susan. As always, you come and you completely foobar my brain, and then I question my reality. So I appreciate that. But it's always more pieces to the puzzle. I've always said the world is ran by sorcerers trying to detach you from God. Now the question is, we just have to figure it all. Just have to figure it all out. We have to figure it all out. But everything you're saying is lining up to what I believe, and it's interesting times, man. Susan, one more time, tell them where they can find you.
Oh, I'm Susan Harrell, HARRELL.com. That's to view my artwork, or you can check out my Instagram account at Susie Q's, SUZIECUES_. And I'm also launching a Patreon. I haven't announced that yet, but I'll be launching that soon. It will be under the same name, Susie Q's. And that's all sites set now.
All right, Susan, you came, you saw, you dropped the hammer of the God on us, so we appreciate you. Thank you so much. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope that you can put together your brain after this, because it's been quite an experience, a lot to digest, and I hope you got a lot out of it like I did. Again, go to samtripoli.com for all of my dates, all my premium content. You can click banners there. Rockfin.com's all there.
Okay, guys, I'll do one on Trump Tower. This is pretty stunning, babe. I've seen this before.
Ever since the very beginnings of Donald Trump's candidacy, a lot of people have wondered if Trump is involved in any secret orders or esoteric groups or the Illuminati. And during his campaign, Newt Gingrich said on Fox News that the elite do not want Donald Trump because he's not part of the club and has not gone through the initiation rites. He doesn't belong to the secret society. Newt Gingrich said that on Fox News, but does that make it true? Gingrich is a 33-degree Mason, and Freemasons are encouraged to lie when it comes to their rhetoric. And Albert Pike, the cleric of Freemasonry, admitted this in his book, Morals and Dogma. Masonry, like all religions, all the mysteries, Hermeticism, and alchemy, conceals its secrets from all except the adepts and sages, or the elect, and uses false explanations and misinterpretations of its symbols to mislead those who deserve only to be misled, to conceal the truth, which it calls light, from them, and to draw them away from it. Truth is not for those who are unworthy or unable to receive it or would pervert it. He said that in his book, Morals and Dogma. So by his own words, Freemasons purposely hide, they purposely deceive, they purposely lie, they purposely misdirect because they believe that those who are not their members deserve to be misled. So if Newt Gingrich said that Donald Trump's not a member and Newt Gingrich is a 33-degree Mason, is it true what he said? This is what we have to look at. And if we are in the end times right now, we can expect that there's going to be deception because the Bible tells us that great delusion would come. So while this great delusion is pounding the shores of the land, that would mean that in order to survive as a follower of Jesus, it's going to take discernment and examining the facts. And in this video, I'm going to present 3 exhibits that will show evidence that Donald J. Trump is a member of the Freemasons or a dark society. So now let's look at Exhibit A. Donald Trump has an odd way of posing and sitting. He seems to favor putting his thumb and fingertips together and pointing his hand downwards. And as we look at the hand gesture, it appears to be making an inverted pyramid. He's always doing this.
Okay, the
question is why?
camera's glaring, guys.
And
Hang
of
on.
course, to show intellectual honesty, we must also include that maybe it's just a habit. Perhaps his fingertips are normally attracted to each other, and he can't help it. That's the case. The subconscious thing, maybe. Or symbolism. It is one of the Freemasonry signs. And as we look at the images, they look deliberate.
Do that now. I like that. The last chick, she's very, very fascinating, wasn't she? You stop her else, it says it all.
You know, I wondered if he's commanded to do it. Like, if he stops, will someone be unhappy? Or what if he's doing it to earn something? Now, we're going to talk about that in a moment. But these gestures appear to be making the inverted pyramid. But what does that mean? What is the inverted pyramid? Well, to explain it, we're going to look at a quick background of the Freemasonry symbol, the inverted pyramid. Try to get a hold of what I'm about to share in the following primer, because it's going to help explain where I am going with this. And also, if you may be a born-again Christian, you love Jesus, I want you to know that these symbols that I'm going to show you can do you no harm. Now, the inverted pyramid is a symbol that's used by Freemasons, members of the Occult, Satanists, New Agers, pagans, and many others who practice esoteric mysticism and dark arts. Its origin is found in the ancient fertility cult of Babylon. It goes all the way back to the beginning of time, when Satan was deceiving the earth. At the very beginning, he wanted to come up with a counterfeit to draw people away from the truth of Elohim, of Yahweh. So he came up with his counterfeits to try to replace. And then he also included with the counterfeits the doctrine of his false religion. And he purposely appealed to the carnality of man. His original false counterfeit religion included lust and carnality and promiscuity and adultery and fornication. When the children of Israel migrated into the promised land, they were exposed to the fertility cult in the land of Canaan, where Baal and Asherah were worshipped. A lot of Christians don't know this, but Baal worship is a sexual religion at its core. Many modern Christians erroneously think that the main attraction of Baal worship was bowing down to idols and statues, but the real attraction was the sexual activity that went along with Baal worship. Because during their rituals, it was common for orgies to break out to please their fertility god. And through the centuries, mankind has never changed. Today, the residents of Earth also take part in ritualistic fornication under the guise of pagan fertility rituals, especially in America. Can America be great if these things are taking place on our shores? If Burning Man is taking place on our shores, can America be great? Now, Burning Man is not just a small gathering of a few Earth worshippers. It's an annual event where tens of thousands of people meet in the...
And it got washed out this year. Burning Man got washed out, and they got stuck there wallowing in the mud for about 5 or 6 days.
desert to have an orgy. Baal worship is everywhere. And let us not forget spring break become one of the cultural staples of American people as they make their passage into adulthood. This occurs every year by the millions. What does this have to do with the upside down pyramid? What I'm establishing is that the upside down pyramid, the inverted pyramid, is sexual. And in this world that denies God, the main attraction of being a human is sexual deviancy and carnality. It's always been about the sexual temptations of man. And as I just mentioned, the children of Israel were confronted with the temptation of fertility worship when they entered the promised land and were introduced to Baal and Asherah. Now, God told them to tear down the altars, but unfortunately they did not. And the corruption spread into their camp. And Baal was made the male deity of the cult, and Asherah was the female. And over time, Satan spread the fertility cult throughout the world. And the original names of the deities evolved into other names as they polluted planet Earth. Asherah goes by several names, including the geographical region where she is worshipped, but Asherah goes by Astarte, Ashtoreth, Esther Goddess, Athiarat, Venus, Isis, Juno, Ishtar, the Queen of Heaven, Aphrodite, Hadad, and many other names. Right here we see an idol of Asherah from an antiquities dig. We see horns on top of her head. Those horns were symbolic of mountain peaks. As archaeologists have made discoveries, they have found stone carvings of the goddess Asherah. We can see right here the inverted triangle of Asherah represents the female anatomy. And as you can see, the inverted triangle was part of Asherah's rendering and represented the female portion of human anatomy, while Baal represented the male anatomy with the use of pillars and poles. And over time, Baal's name morphed into other names, but the basics remained the same. Fertility worship took place in temples utilizing phallic symbols, obelisks, maypoles, and pillars. And today, these practices continue in pagan religions, cults, New Age ceremonies, and secret orders throughout the world. Now, how important is the inverted triangle to the occult? Well, let's take a look at this. The symbol is extolled by Satanists. This is Lucifer's symbol. The upside down triangle is revered and used in many occult rituals. Right here is an image taken from an early 1900s book of their practice. Now in this one, you can see that this ritualistic talisman utilizes both the upright and the inverted triangle. And then we have another one here. So as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, the inverted triangle has special meaning to those who are allied with the underworld. Now, if you're wondering, what does this have to do with Freemasonry? The answer is dualism. Dualism is the belief that opposites in the universe work together for balance and compatibility. It's a belief that the forces of good and evil need each other, which to them minimizes God and elevates Satan as being equals, because they believe that God and Satan are equals who depend on each other for the universe to function. And as a result, there's no such thing as right and wrong. It's only balance. Now, Freemasons believe that when an initiate of their craft gains a full understanding of dualism, then they will reach illumination. And they have many symbols for dualism, including the tiled floor in many of their lodges. And this is to show the opposites, that together work for balance. And dualism is also represented in the very popular Freemasonry symbol of the square and the compass. A lot of regular folks don't know what this means. In fact, a lot of them are told it represents God, the great architect, because a G is inside of the compass and the square. And as you can see, looking at this image, the compass is pointing up for the upright pyramid, and that represents the male. And then you have the square below it. It represents the inverted triangle. The novice initiate of Freemasonry is taught that this symbol represents God, the great architect. But as we read earlier, Freemasonry purposely deceives those who do not understand. And in reality, the meaning of the square and the compass is sexual. The following excerpt explains it. And this was admitted by former 33-degree Mason James D. Shaw, who gave an explanation, as it is known, to Royal Arch initiates. This is what he said about the square and the compass. The real meaning of these great lights is sexual. The square represents the female generative principle, which includes the earth and the base things, sensual nature, while the compass represents the male, the active generative principle, the things above, the sun, the heavens, and the higher spiritual nature. And when the compass is arranged above the square, it symbolizes that the male sun is impregnating the earth with life-producing rays. And he went on to say the true meaning of the square and the compass are twofold. The earthly human representations are of the man and his phallus, and also the woman with her female reproductive organs. And the cosmic meaning is that of the active sun, which is in truth a deity, the sun god from above, imparting life into the passive earth, the earth fertility goddess, who is below and producing new life. Now, folks, try to get a hold of this, because this principle is utilized by all of those who worship their false god. It includes the New Age. It includes Indian Hinduism. It includes the religion of the pagans and the Druids, the Luciferians, the Illuminati. So dualism to them means God and Satan are equals, or right and wrong are the same. And as a result, there is no such thing as sin. There is no such thing as breaking God's commandments, because there are no commandments. Doing what the human soul wills to do is the sum of their law. The dark practice of Satanism also relies on dualism. And one of the models of their renowned goat statue, the Baphomet, reveals it, because it points up and down, and that's the motto of the Baphomet. As above, so below. The Baphomet is also a transgender. It's neither male nor female. And the symbol of the Baphomet features the sun above and the dark moon below, black and white. So Satanism also depends on contrast. I mentioned all of that, ladies and gentlemen, so that we can move forward to now look at the evidence. When members of the occult practice their rituals, their motive is to gain and receive strength and riches and prosperity from their deities. They do it in exchange for temporary fame and riches and achievement. Many entertainers have done this. Politicians have done this. This is what Bohemian Grove is all about. They do this for power. In order to gain their power, they have to submit their loyalty to their deities. They do this through secret rituals and also by showing loyalty in plain sight in front of everybody. Now, make note of this, ladies and gentlemen. If they regularly show the symbolic gestures openly and in plain sight, then they are also practicing an invocation to the deity in plain sight. You see, just making the symbol with their hands is not an empty gesture. It's actually an invocation to their gods. And Donald Trump often postures himself with the inverted pyramid gesture. So we have to ask, if he is an active participant of the craft, he's doing it in plain sight. But is that all there is? No. Donald Trump has exhibited and promoted the inverted pyramid in other areas of his life. So now let's look at Exhibit B, the odd campaign button. When he was campaigning, some of his staff members wore a lapel pin that was very strange looking, because it was an inverted pyramid with the colors purple and gold. At the time, members of the press wondered about it, but they didn't really pursue it. And as a result, the story didn't really get that much traction. But the question needs to be asked, why? Why did their staff members wear such an odd-looking campaign button? And what did it mean? Right here we see President Communications Director, Press Secretary Sean Spicer also wore it. And then we also see Mr. Corey right here who wore it. He was Trump's campaign manager. Well, that was...
Diane, that's terrible. People can do that. They're renting your house off you, and then they go and trash it. That's just dreadful. Even at my worst, I was never like that.
So he got fired, but he also wore it. So as the press was wondering about it, eventually the Trump team came up with a story. And the Secret Service provided that story, or at least they were the excuse. What they said was these pins were just to help them identify the members of the Trump team so that they could know them from the crowd. Now that may sound good, but it doesn't really explain why they continued to wear the pins when they were by themselves. Here we see a picture of Corey Lewandowski visiting a TV station doing an interview, and he's wearing the pin. Did that help the Secret Service to know that he was still a good guy? This does not make sense. There's another image of him doing an interview, wearing the pin, but they're not in the crowd now. That explanation doesn't really make sense. And what it appears to be is that they're wearing the pin to send a message to those who are watching them. Freemasons and secret orders love to hide things in plain sight. So if this was a symbolic in-your-face effort to display their symbol, what does it mean?
Well, Diane, it's not like that here. I see in America when I watch cops, like people that are living with people, if they stay there for more than 3 nights, the owner of the house can't kick them out, because I've seen that on cops. In Australia, you don't pay your rent, the sheriffs will be on your ass within a week and taking your stuff and putting it on the sidewalk or taking possession of your property. So it's not the same here. They're really hard on people who don't pay their rent.
The pin appears to resemble the colors of a Grand Master Freemason, which is an office that presides over a Masonic jurisdiction. And the person holding the title is also referred to Most Worshipful Grand Master. Now, there are 2 ways to obtain this position. The first one is through loyal effort. They're working their way up. The second method is to become a Grand Master by honorary placement. And there's been several presidents in the past who have received the honorary placement of Grand Master, including Franklin D. Roosevelt, Harry S. Truman, and Gerald Ford. In this image right here, we can see President Truman in his Grand Master apron. He was awarded the honorary office, and he accepted it. We can see that the colors are gold and purple.
I wonder what would have happened if he didn't accept it.
Which coincide with the office. Now, Freemasonry aprons come in a variety of colors depending on the office. As you can see right here, the purple and the gold does resemble the pin. There they are next to each other. So what we have so far is circumstantial evidence, but we're building a case. So where are we? We've talked about the inverted pyramid. We've talked about the origins of the inverted triangle and the upright triangle and what they mean. They are sourced from the fertility cult, going all the way back to the kingdom of Babylon, where Satan invented his religions to counterfeit the true religion, to Yahweh, Elohim, God our Father. And the symbols that Satan came up with originate in the anatomy of both the male and female gender. You have the pillars of Baal that represent the male, and then you have the Asherah, the inverted triangle, to represent the female's genital region. Now, we are going to look at the final evidence. And ladies and gentlemen, please continue to finish this video because it's going to come together as an explosion of reality and truth. Now, let's look at Trump Tower. By now, most of the Western world is familiar with it. It was completed in 1983, and it is 664 feet high. That's the official reported height of Trump Tower. And before I move on, I want to emphasize.
Diane, you're not in the city, are you? You're out rural area, aren't you?
The present age of that tower, because it's very interesting in this narrative that we're looking at. And then when we add Donald Trump, who is now the president of the United States, Trump Tower was built in 1983. It's 33 years old. It was completed on November the 30th, 1983, and then it became the home of Donald Trump. Now, if we do the math, it was completed November 30th, 83. Trump was elected president on November the 8th, 2016, and then the Electoral College cast their votes for him on December 19th, 2016. So when the electoral votes were cast for Donald Trump on December 19th, Trump Tower had just had its 33rd birthday. This means the tower was 33 years old when Trump officially became the president of the United States. Now, does this have significance? Is it a coincidence? Well, let's continue and let's find out. Now, officially, Trump Tower has 58 floors, but Donald Trump added an extra 10 floors to the elevator numbers and claims that it has 68 floors. He lives in the top 3 floors in his penthouse. So in the mind of Trump, his penthouse begins on floor 66, which is an interesting number. Now, purpose of this disclosure is to determine if Donald J. Trump is involved in Freemasonry or some other esoteric dark art or mystical belief. And folks, based on what I'm about to show you, I believe that Trump Tower offers the best evidence. And I'm about to show you why. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the members of their veiled craft will often conceal information in plain sight. And they will use symbols to represent their beliefs. And also, many religions of the occult and paganism will borrow from one another with similar doctrines. And the reason for this is because they all have the same author, also known as Satan the Deceiver. Now, watch this, folks. The Satanic Church's belief of dualism is represented by the transgender Baphomet, which possesses both male and female anatomy. The Freemasons do the same thing with their square and compass, which represents both male and female anatomy. And when we look at the ancient fertility cults of Baal worship, both the male and female anatomy were represented in the pillars, the Asherah and the grove of trees. Now let's look at Trump Tower. From the ground level, most people have not noticed that the tower's anatomy tells a concealed story, because the attention is always at the front gate of Trump Tower, the main entrance at street level. And when Trump was elected president, a lot of people gathered and took pictures. They wanted to see the famous tower, and the New York Police Department had to set up a perimeter to block bystanders from getting too close, because it had to be declared a security site and turned into a fortress because America's new president lived there. So a lot of people focused on the front door, but they didn't really look up. Most people didn't study what was above them. When the TV cameras were there and the media was there, they didn't really talk about the outside of the building. And that's because from ground level, it's kind of hard to see what's going on above them. Now, folks, watch this. Based on what I'm about to show you, I'll say it right now. Trump Tower represents the dualism of Baal's pillars. It represents the male portion of the anatomy and the inverted triangle of Asherah and the mystical grove of trees. So now, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Exhibit C. This is what the evidence has brought me to conclude. It appears that Trump Tower was built to be a temple, number one, and number two, it was built to be a continual invocation to the spirit world. Let me say that again, folks. Trump Tower was built to be in a constant state of spiritual invocation. And I know that sounds crazy. I know it does, but over the past few years, we've witnessed pagan rituals that celebrated the underworld. We have seen it in previous Olympic ceremonies where they did rituals. We've seen it in Super Bowl halftime shows. We've seen it during the Grammys. We saw it when the shamans opened the portals and when Anubis was paraded across the country, the jackal god that presides over the city of death. And now we have a president who is a very unique individual. He's very wealthy, and he lets everybody know that. He loves to parade his wealth and shiny things. He loves to show the display of gold and silver and precious stones. And now he's the most powerful man in the world. Now, folks, he did not get there by accident. And I also do not believe that he got there based on a prophecy by a retired fireman. I believe the fireman prophecy is false. And I've talked about that on all the programs. And I believe that
He's talking about Kim Clement, and I agree with him. I think Kim Clement was a phony.
have provided evidence to prove that fireman prophecy is not true. If you want to read more about it, you can go to my website, watchmanscry.com, and you'll be able to find it in there. Donald Trump is the most powerful man in the world, and he didn't get there by accident. I'm not saying it based on just my opinion. I'm basing it on the evidence of Donald Trump that he has revealed himself. Now, when we look at his penthouse, right here we have pictures of his penthouse. His penthouse is decorated with paintings and artwork that pays homage to the deities of ancient mythology. On his ceiling, he has a painting of Apollo on a chariot being led into the sky by Aurora. He also has Apollo on his mantle. Additionally, we can find other carved images in his penthouse. There's one of the mythological deities Eros and Psyche. Why does Trump have this? Well, some could say it's just decoration. He's into mythology. He likes the storyline of Apollo and finds it neat. We could say that. Now, before anyone says it's no big deal, I want to remind everyone watching this of the prophecy in the book of Revelation. It's found in chapter 9, and it says, "And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose the smoke out of the pit as the smoke of a great furnace. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power." This is a prophecy of what's going to happen during the tribulation period. At some point in the future, God is going to allow the bottomless pit to be opened. He's going to allow that hatch to be open so that demon creatures will come to the surface of the earth to lay waste to those under judgment, to those who have rejected God. And then it goes on to say that these demonic creatures have a king over them. Verse 11, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon. But
Shawnee, and you remember Kim Clement said that they'll scream to impeach Trump, but he won't be impeached. We know he was impeached twice. He beat it, but that doesn't change the fact he was impeached. So Kim Clement was not a true prophet.
the Greek tongue, his name is Apollyon, which is another rendition of Apollo.
In ancient Greece, Apollo was known as the god king and the destroyer. Plato wrote in Critias that Apollo should be feared and could only be appeased through sacrifices. In Homer's Iliad, Apollo sends death, destruction, and pestilence to a city for 9 days. Apollo came down furious from the summits of Olympus with his bow and his quiver upon his shoulder, and the arrows rattled on his back with the rage that trembled within him. He sat himself down away from the ships with a face as dark as night, and his silver bow rang death as he shot his arrow in the midst of them.
This really happened.
But presently he aimed his shafts at the people themselves, and all day long the pyres of the dead were burnt. Ladies and gentlemen, Abaddon the Destroyer is Apollo the Destroyer.
This creature's not human, folks. The principality of Apollyon has several renditions, including Apollo. He is the destroyer, and his real name is Satan. Most mythology that has evolved over time is based on the spiritual battle of God versus Satan, or the fall of Satan. And the Hellenistic character of Apollo is one of those. And Donald Trump has him painted on his ceiling. When we look at the end time prophecy of the villain of the tribulation period, the coming little horn, also known as the Antichrist, we can read in Daniel 11:37, it says, "Neither shall he regard the God of his fathers." Donald Trump's father is Presbyterian. But if Donald Trump does practice the dark esoteric arts, which acknowledge underworld entities like Apollo, then this would qualify to fulfilling the verse that we find in Daniel 11:37. Because if Trump's dad was a Presbyterian, but Donald Trump himself worships underworld creatures, then neither shall he regard the God of his fathers would be fulfilled in Donald Trump. And if you're wondering, am I proposing that Donald Trump is the Antichrist? Am I saying that right now? I am not saying he is. I am saying that we need to keep him on the table as one of the candidates. Because what if he is? What if he is, ladies and gentlemen? This topic is about Trump Tower. As I stated earlier, most people at the street level only see what's going on at the street level, but they don't see what's going on above them. So now let's look from an aerial view. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Here is the picture. This is Trump Tower before your eyes. The inverted pyramid that represents the female Asherah is built into his building. It's right there. We also see above the inverted triangle 7 pillars rising, which represents Baal. So we have the female and the male in Trump Tower.
Shawnee, even down to the chandeliers in Trump's penthouse, they're the same chandeliers that you get in Masonic temples. The same chandeliers, just a smaller version.
There's another image of it. Count the points at the top of the building. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 points. And now for the grand finale. Let's zoom in on the inverted pyramid. If you're looking at this image, let's count the trees going across. 1, starting from the left, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Do you see it? 6 on the top. And when we count down the right side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the same thing on the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What does this mean? It means that Trump's inverted triangle of Asherah that's on his building in the exterior of his home for the last 33 years represents 666. And it doesn't stop there, folks. Look at this. The fertility cult always places a grove of trees. Trees represent the feminine. And how interesting is it that Trump's inverted pyramid is made up with a grove of trees? And also, when you're looking from afar, the trees appear to look like the private area of a woman's anatomy. It's right there, folks. Some of you are thinking I'm being crude. We're all adults. It is right there. This cannot be denied. Now, is this a coincidence? Did Trump not know what his tower looked like? Of course he did. He designed it. Here's an image of the young Trump standing over his temple. He could put his finger on the triangle and count the steps. He was proud of it. He had to know about the inverted 666 triangle. It was his design. And also when we look at the upper portion, we can see that the upper portion of the building simulates the rising pillars of Baal. And right here, it's plain to see. You can count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, what does this mean? Pillars of Baal rise up, and the inverted pyramid transcends down into the earth. Now, right here's a 3D image of the tower to make it a little bit easier to see. And here's another view from the top of the tower, from the roof, looking down. And as you can see, we have the 7 points below, and then the pyramid toward the end. This is looking down. So we have the 666 pyramid sitting on 7 mountains. Here's a close-up of the 666 inverted triangle. Now, folks, here it is before our eyes. It's right here. And Donald Trump was either deliberate with the tower's design or it was an accident. But do you think it was? When we take all of the things we've looked at, I believe that Donald Trump was deliberate with the design of the tower, which completely tells the story of Baal's pillars and Asherah's fertility. And I also submit this. Because of this design, the tower has served as an ongoing invocation to the spirit world on Donald Trump's behalf. He did this so that he would be rewarded with earthly riches and power. Now, let me take it even further. Trump Tower is a temple to the deities of the underworld, and his penthouse is a temple to Freemasonry. Now, let's look at the...
Okay, Trump's in his mid-70s, so he's had the best part of his life, and he's lived in wealth, but that means nothing when he dies. It means absolutely nothing.
Interior of Manhattan's Freemasonic Lodge. This is from Manhattan's Lodge in his same town.
Yeah,
Now,
I
look at the
chandelier.
chandelier on the ceiling. It's round, and there's 2 of them. There's a pair of them, and toward the bottom of the chandelier is a little bulb that extrudes. Now let's look inside of Trump's penthouse. Look at his chandelier. They are similar. Is that all there is? No. Freemasonic lodges will often feature the twin pillars of Jacob and Boaz. That's the name that God gave to Solomon when he built the temple for Israel that was dedicated to him. God told him to place 2 pillars on the outside and name them Jacob and Boaz. Jacob means he will establish it, and Boaz means by his strength. So together it means by his strength, God will establish it. And often in their Freemasonic lodges, they will place imitations of Jacob and Boaz, paired, the 2 pillars. Here we see another Freemasonic lodge, and we can have the pillars in pairs. There's several images right here. Now, let's look at Donald Trump's penthouse. The pillars are installed also in pairs. So there you go, folks. The evidence is before you. And I conclude, and I am of the opinion that based on what we have seen, Donald Trump is a cloaked member of Freemasonry. And he did not become the president by accident. Now, a moment ago, I mentioned that 3 presidents were given the office of an honorary Grand Master. I am also proposing this. Based on what we have seen, I am led to believe, in in my opinion, that Donald Trump was given an honorary placement in the Freemasons. If he is not an active member, he was at minimum given an honorary title. And that is...
No, he's an active member all his life. He's always done that triangle thing with his hands. So I don't think he's a new... Yeah.
Why the pins were placed on his staff. It was to communicate that he was acknowledging it and he was thankful for it. Based on what we have seen right here, it is my opinion that Donald Trump made deals with the elite and with invocations to the dark arts in order to become the president. Now, granted, I could be wrong. I understand that. I could be. And if it's proven that I'm wrong, I'll recant what I'm saying right here. I will repent for what I'm saying right here. But the evidence tells quite a different story. So in conclusion, here's what we have. Trump Tower features the number 666 on an inverted pyramid that is built into his building. We also have that the edifice of Trump Tower exhibits 7 sections that rise like 7 pillars of Baal. We also have that Trump's penthouse is on the 66th floor. We also have that his penthouse has mythological deities on his ceiling. He also has paintings and artwork of the deities. He possesses mythological deities in the form of statues, and his interior replicates the inside of a Grand Lodge. The chandelier resembles what we find in the Grand Lodge, and the pillars inside his penthouse are also in pairs. Now, I could go on, but this video is already long enough. I'm going to be continuing this research. You can go to my website at watchmanscry.com. I have an ongoing series called The Trump Chronicles, and you can see the hard copy of this video at my website. In an upcoming installment, we're going to be looking at Donald Trump's coat of arms. I'm going to break it down, and I'm going to show that aside from the Order Out of Chaos eagle that's on one of his coat of arms, there's also other symbolic images that pay homage to deities of mythology and the underworld. So, thank you for watching. Subscribe.
Okay, guys, I'll finish with a bit of Skywatch.
Hospital today. Hello, everybody, again. This is Donna Howell of Skywatch Television, coming to you with another prayer that I would love for you to join me in. There's been some activity at the hospital today, and reason to believe that we need prayer more now than ever. So I was hoping that as we continue to keep everybody updated, that you would continue to hold up our whole entire family in prayer, especially Tom in this moment. So please, if you would, bow your heads with me and pray with me now.
Gladly, sister.
Father God, in the name of Jesus, I pray for healing in my father's body. I pray for healing so sensational that it will bring incredible glory to your name. I pray for a miracle. Tom Horn is your servant. Please, God, I ask in your precious and mighty name that you would fuse together the tissues of his heart and bring a marvel, a phenomenon to this world through his full restoration.
Amen.
If it's your will, Father, I ask today for a miracle, a sign, like the New Testament says, that Jesus is precisely who he said he is, today, tomorrow, yesterday, and forever. Let there be a story of glory in this. Please, God, if it be your will, let a testimony come from this that will shock the nations in a time when our world needs to see you glorified. I know I speak for everyone who knows Tom and everyone who has ever known Tom, when I say that he will not be quiet about this if he pulls through. If restoration comes today, my dad will blare it from the mountaintops. He will use this miracle to go and tell Great Commission
I didn't realise she was Tom Horn's daughter. I didn't realise that.
She introduces her as that.
Yeah, I know, but I didn't know until now. I didn't know she was Tom Horn's daughter.
What you have done for him, the healing power of Christ our Lord. This miracle I'm asking for, this miracle that we're all asking for, would not merely be for our own benefit, it would be for the world, God. In the New Testament, when Jesus performed wonders, it's clear in the Greek over and over again that although these events did benefit the asker, ultimately it was always for your glory, a sign that Jesus was the Son of God and Messiah, that he was who he said. When a New Testament man or woman received a miracle from the Son, they ran and told, you know your servant, God, you know Tom, you know my dad, and you know that he will run and tell. You know that he has already obtained the attention and bent the ears of many women and men who would simply not know you the way they do now if it had not been for the ministry he has faithfully carried out in your world boldly. On radio, on television, through news sites, books, and countless other forms of incredible media that has rocked the world and brought many back to your word, to your testimony of who you are, in your limitless and incredible power and might, in your love, in your compassion for your sons and daughters. This is what your servant has done for the sake of the gospel, Lord. There are many people right now texting and
wow, she does a powerful prayer. Very impressed.
Calling all day, saying they absolutely know that Tom is going to pull through this, and I want to stand on that, Lord. So here now in this,
it looks like it, Shawnee.
It looks like it. No doctor on the planet could have seen coming. I pray this not only so that Dad's wife and kids, family, friends, loved ones, and ministerial partners will benefit, but so that your name will be glorified throughout the earth. I once again plead the blood of Jesus over my dad right now. In your precious, powerful name, Jesus. Amen. Thank you again.
Prayers for Tom Horn. But guys, I think God's calling home the warriors now. So when Christ comes back, they can be behind him, backing Christ up. I think he's calling God's warriors home. Oh, there it is.
If I want justice, I have to take the law into my own hands.
There will be a lot of bloodshed.
Let there be bloodshed.
Not align with what Scripture says regarding God's ideal design for Earth. And where does Leviathan fit into this picture? In the very beginning, God created the heavens, the earth, and dinosaurs? Or did he? What were these enormous colossal beasts, and is there something about their nature that does not align with what Scripture says regarding God's ideal design for Earth? And where does Leviathan fit into this picture? The answers to those questions and more right now. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Skywatch TV. We begin week 4 of what I promised, and I think I'm delivering so far, am I not? A mind-shattering, a mind-boggling, explosive series on the brand new book, Before Genesis. But before we get into today's discussion, let me introduce who's in house. He's a multi-time, critically acclaimed, best-selling author and founder of Skywatch Television, Dr. Thomas Horn. She's a credentialed ordained reverend with a degree in Bible and theology, a powerful voice in Christian television, Donna Howell.
Who is his daughter, which I didn't know that until today.
His broadcasting career has spanned for more than 40 years. He's the best-selling author of the groundbreaking books, Last Clash of the Titans, The Great Inception, and The Second Coming of Saturn, Derek Gilbert.
Yay!
She's one of the lead producers of the forthcoming Rescue Us docuseries from Defender Investigative Films and holds a degree in history for education. Brittany Jackson. And she's the host of the popular Christian television program for women, the Simply His Coffee Shop. Please welcome my beautiful wife, Catherine Horn. I should correct something I've said. I promised an explosive series, and then I said, have I not delivered? But honestly, I really want to point at Derek, Donna, and Tom, because they are truly the ones delivering, are they not? We're talking about the brand new book, Before Genesis, the Unauthorized History of Tohu, Bohu, and the Chaos Dragon and the Land Before Time by Donna Howell and Dr. Thomas Horn, and the companion DVD that we're going to touch on a little bit later by Derek Gilbert and Dr. Aaron Judkins, What Lies Beneath, The Lost Secrets of the Watchers Below Gobekli Tepe. These two, along with some free digital download products we're going to tell you about in just a minute. I promise this is the master collection. We've been talking about the dating of the Earth. And as we move into week number 4, I think we're hitting some of the ground that I will, and my oldest daughter, Kate, who's in audience today, will find superiorly fascinating. And that is the subject of the dinosaurs, because it's another...
Okay, Shawnee, God bless, mate. Good night.
Kind of diversifying how they feel when they look at the age of the Earth. You have science, you have the old Earth, you have the young Earth. And you guys have done this clinic over the last few weeks, weaving these different worldviews and ideologies into one narrative that not only fits the Bible, it agrees with the Word of God. Donna, last week we talked about the link between Lucifer, serpents, and reptiles, but dinosaurs were reptilian in nature. And if scientific dating is correct, they've been extinct since this void era that you keep talking about. Now, could Lucifer's fall be connected to the extinction of dinosaurs?
That is our theory. First of all, understand that etymologically speaking, that is the root of the word here. The Greek word dinos, fearfully or terribly great, and sauros, lizard. So putting that together, the word dinosaur comes from ancient Greek that means fearfully or great lizard. Now, here's the thing. No matter how old our human languages are, even ancient Greek is a very young, infantile language in the comparison to 66 million years. If that is even how old the bones are when we discover these bones of these creatures. But here's where we get into what is really strange about them. At one point, science says they were not fearfully or terribly great anything. As some of these scientific studies have shown, as they are quoted in the book, we actually have science itself attesting to the idea that dinosaurs were originally about the size of a German Shepherd. And they may not have been carnivorous. You know, Tom mentioned that last week. They might have actually been an herbivore kind of creature from the very beginning. So we can't completely answer, did God create something else? And then Lucifer, being the DNA manipulator that we know him to be from the Genesis 6:4 narrative, did he take something that God originally designed and warp that? Maybe that's why we have, at some point in history, something changed. These German Shepherd-sized lizards became big, ginormous, carnivorous savages. And of course, a lot of people want to come in at this early on in the conversation, and they got to say, why do we not have them now? All right, why are they not still here? If God made them and they were as God designed them, why are they not here? Noah took 2 of everything on the boat except for the clean animals that he took more of. That he was instructed to take all animals 2 by 2. Did he whoops and forget the dinosaurs? We see that. It's kind of a running meme on those Christian t-shirts. They're hilarious. You know, the day that he forgot the unicorn and the dinosaur. But the truth of the matter is some Christians will say, no, he remembered to take them. They were on the boat. But then, you know, Noah landed on Mount Ararat and the animals went out and the vegetation had changed on the earth. And or you know, there wasn't enough humans around for them to eat and live. So they just kind of went extinct. Well, again, with all due respect, whoops, God. I mean, you go through this whole planning session to make sure that what you have created is preserved, that it lives, and you didn't quite figure out how they were going to survive. after they got off the boat?
Mhm.
The truth of the matter is, if science, now we've been talking about whether or not science could even be right or wrong, and its idea of 66 million years ago when the Chicxulub crater hit the earth, and that's what science believes happened to them. We've been talking about whether or not that particular timeline can even be accepted anyway. But assuming that it can, the era that the dinosaurs fell was the void era. They were not here 6,000 to 10,000 years ago when the flood would have happened anyway.
What's interesting is that, again, getting back to this idea that the science is not necessarily settled, is that over the last 25 years, it's now become acceptable for paleontologists to admit they find things like blood vessels and soft tissue like collagen in the remains of these bones. Now, until the last 25 years, it was generally accepted that soft tissue blood vessels could not be preserved, even in permafrost, more than a few thousand years. Now, suddenly, because they've been discovered and it's okay to talk about in that community, now we know somehow that you can preserve collagen for 65 to 66 million years.
Even George Pember, who wrote Earth's Earliest Ages, went on to say, after commenting on Genesis 1:30, which is where we get, to every beast of the field and to every fowl of the air and to everything that creepeth upon the earth, meat was from the herbs. The herbs is what the meat was, right? So he goes on to say, there were therefore no carnivora in the sinless world. Since then, the fossil remains are those of creatures from before Adam's time, and yet they show evident tokens of disease, death. This is what we see in their bones. Disease, death, mutual destruction. So he concludes, they must have belonged to another world and have sin-stained history of their own, a history which ended in the ruin of themselves and their habitation. George Pember calls the fossils that come from this particular time the era of the fossils, the Luciferian void. So, two questions here. Were dinosaurs originally something that God created at all? Or are these big, hovering, stomping, savage beasts, man-eating beasts? Look at what Lucifer did in Genesis 6:1-4. Look.
And they are dinosaurs and mixed species, because you see a lot of dinosaurs with feathers. So they've been mixed with birds, because that's what the Watchers done. They corrupted 200 animals as well, remember, guys?
At what his motive was. If he had effectively and successfully cut off the human line, the Messiah could never have been born.
Right.
If he could have done that back in the void era, made it so that humanity, when it came from Adam forward, made in the image of God, they could not have survived something like T-Rexes stomping around and eating everybody. His motive is central to this. So the question is, were dinosaurs originally made of God? And if so, were they the little German shepherd leaf eater thing?
Well, it's interesting, Donna, because my wife Nita is in the audience today, and she loves horses. She has miniature horses, right? Well, the ones from the Void era, they were about the size of a gerbil. Oh my! So something definitely happened that changed in the animal kingdom, at least the evolutionary traits of those animals, if you want to put any stock.
The atmosphere changed. They've done experiments where they've localized a climate, and the insects they put in there, when they put high pressure on the atmosphere, the insects they put in there grow to larger sizes than normal. So the theory is pre-flood, the atmosphere was different, and that's why the animals were bigger.
Evolution. You mentioned the Chicxulub crater, that's underneath the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, and that's where many scientists do believe that this asteroid struck the Earth that wiped out 66 million years ago, the dinosaurs and all that. But my theory for some time has been, and you've seen headlines on skywatchtv.com, where if they have a story about the dinosaur asteroid, I always change it, Scientists confirm the dating of the fall of Lucifer. Why do I do that? It's because I believe that Lucifer was involved with, in fact, the text you were quoting earlier calls him a covering cherub. He was over something. He had administrative duties over a certain part of what the earth was before the fall. And then after the fall, general theory that he became what we today call Satan. Derek has a different opinion about that. But whatever this god of the earth is now that we call Satan, would have taken his dominion over some part of the earth as a covering cherub before the fall. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
And so there's a theory, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but it's called the Fifth Watcher. And it's original with Gary Stearman. I want to give him credit for that, but we'll talk about it. But anyway, that's what I think happened. It was not the Chicxulub asteroid. It could have been an asteroid that struck the earth, but what really wiped out the dinosaur kingdom was, I believe, that Lucifer was responsible for that species on the earth. And when he fell, his entire kingdom collapsed on earth and brought about the demise of the dinosaurs.
It could also be asked, was the Chicxulub asteroid and Lucifer the same thing?
The same thing.
When Jesus says, I saw him fall like lightning, was he the asteroid? And it's interesting too, because Chicxulub, that's Mayan, and it means the devil's tail.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, wow. Don't forget too, that science acknowledges that when the Chicxulub asteroid hit the earth, now it actually brought to extinction not only the dinosaurs, but a large number of marine reptiles. And that gets into some weird waters, because you're looking at Lucifer and you're looking at Leviathan, which I can't wait to get into. And you're looking at, you know, the sea creatures and how do they interact. You've got all of these lizards of the water.
And Derek and Dr. Heiser both have written extensively, I think, that you might be talking about a judgment on the chaos dragon.
Right.
And in his lifetime, Derek talked about this in beautiful imagery. Talks about when Jesus walked upon the waters, he was actually showing his dominion over the chaos dragons of the sea.
No. Yeah.
That's what he was doing. They are under my feet. They are under my authority. Donna, you mentioned Leviathan. Let's get right into that. Some scholars believe that the strange character called Leviathan in the Bible is actually a dinosaur, but the Bible calls it both a dragon and a serpent. So does he play a role into all of this somehow as well?
As a literary device, a lot of scholars see that Leviathan is a personification of chaos. So it's kind of like when you're reading through Proverbs and other areas of the Old Testament, you get that personification, like Lady Wisdom in Proverbs 8. It's not an actual person whose name is Lady Wisdom. It's a personification of an idea. Some scholars think that Leviathan is just a personification of a standard idea, a concept, chaos being the concept. Okay, I don't believe that, but I will say that even if that's all it is, Leviathan's name literally represents the state of chaos. Leviathan existed in a time in Earth's history that was prior to the fall of man, possibly prior to the fall of Lucifer. So this thing, Leviathan, whatever it is, this sea serpent, it is absolutely the chaos of the original Earth. Yep. Now, of course, a lot of scholars will also compare when you're looking at Lucifer and you're looking at Satan and all of these weird serpentine, snaky, imagery. When you look at all of that, that's also embodied in Leviathan. So that would explain why some, and I realize I can't wait to hear what Derek has to say about all of this, because some scholars do actually link Leviathan, Lucifer, Satan, and chaos all together. If that's how we are to view this, that's very interesting, because now you have a link to the original void era of Earth, the tohu vabohu, the without form and void judgment era of our planet's history, linking not only to Lucifer and to Satan's fall, but also literally linked to this sea serpent god of chaos. When we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, what do tohu vabohu mean? An uninhabitable wasteland of chaos. Yeah. So no, Leviathan wasn't a dinosaur.
Well, you'll have to hold your thought, because we are going to pivot to Derek Gilbert here in just a second. But ladies and gentlemen, we want to make sure you know how you can get your copy of this incredible new book in the Before Genesis Master Collection. When you order the Before Genesis Master Collection from the SkywatchTVStore.com, you'll receive the brand new book, Before Genesis, The Unauthorized History of Tohu, Bohu, and the Chaos Dragon in the Land Before Time by Dr. Thomas Horn and Donna Howell. In this phenomenal new work, you'll learn about the debate raging between the old Earth and the young Earth creationist groups, what the Earth was like during the without form and void era of Genesis 1-2, how ancient archaeological sites like Göbekli Tepe and the doorway of the serpent point to an intelligent race of beings on Earth alive before the time of Adam and under Lucifer's fallen influence. And for the first time ever, the conclusion to the events of Genesis that merges all contributions. $5 plus shipping and handling. So don't delay. You can scan the QR code on your screen using the camera app on your phone for instant access to this special opportunity. You can also visit us at skywatchtvstore.com or call 1-844-750-4985 and ask for the Before Genesis Master Collection right now.
I tried to jump ahead from the ads.
Before we run out of time, I want to make sure we get some time with Derek, because this is a topic that's very important to Derek. And like you mentioned earlier, Sharon, Gilbert, both of these individuals have written and talked about a lot of this for a very long time. Derek, it's not hard to see the links between Satan, Lucifer, Leviathan, dragons, and serpents, but you believe Leviathan had a lot more to do with the deep mentioned in Genesis 1-2. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something that we wrote in our book, Sharon and me, Giants, Gods, and Dragons, to try to make the point for people who are looking at the Bible and saying, there's all these weird things in here, I can't believe the Bible. No, God calls these characters in the Bible giants, gods,
Good night, Diane. God
dragons.
bless.
And of course, one of the most prominent is Leviathan. In Genesis 1, verse 2, as we discussed in the previous program, the earth was without or became formless and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep. Well, the word translated deep in Hebrew is tahom. Now, that is a cognate, which means same word, different language, with the Akkadian word temtum, which in turn is a cognate for the Sumerian word Tiamat. Tiamat was the Sumerian name of their multi-headed chaos monster, chaos dragon that had to be subdued by a warrior god in Mesopotamian religion. Depending on when the story was written, it was either the sky god Anu, it was the creator god Enlil, it was the storm god Marduk. Again, depending on when it was written, the hero changed from time to time. But this story is consistent in the ancient world, and it always involves a warrior god having to subdue chaos in order to create a world fit for humanity. The main difference, and this even extends into the Egyptian and the Greek religion, where Zeus had to subdue Typhon. The bottom line is this: in all of those stories, the warrior god had to have assistance, like another god come help him, or magic weapons. Baal, when he defeated the sea god or the chaos dragon called Yam, had these magic clubs that were given to him. In the Bible, we get the story where God just subdues it. Right here, Genesis 1, verse 2. Darkness was over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. That's it. It's like Yahweh, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, just said, down, stay.
Yeah.
And that's it. Now, we see a day coming in Isaiah 27, verse 1, where God will eventually, in that day, destroy the twisting serpent, the fleeing serpent, which, by the way, is a direct quote from the Canaanite Baal cycle. And that day, I believe, is reflected in Revelation chapter 27, verse 1, the final chapter of the Bible, where there's a new heaven and a new earth, and the sea is no more. The sea being a symbol of primordial chaos, as Tom mentioned before the break. Jesus walking across the Sea of Galilee, subduing the storm. Not only subduing chaos, but subduing the storm god, Baal, who Jesus identified as Satan, getting Satan and chaos at the same time. I believe that we're dealing with serpentine entities who've rebelled against God. Now, I think that Lucifer, or Shemayaza, Enlil, Saturn, Kronos, Leviathan, Chaos, and Satan are three separate entities reflecting three separate rebellions. Chaos, Genesis 1, Eden, Genesis 3, that would be Satan, and then Genesis 6, Shemayaza, or Lucifer, if you will. But the bottom line is this: these entities with a serpentine appearance, a radiant serpentine appearance, had rebelled against their creator. And I think that's reflected in the serpent worship that we see in the ancient world all throughout the Holy Land and in places like Göbekli Tepe.
But you don't think Leviathan is only relevant to the past. You actually personally believe that he is somehow relevant to the future, and maybe even the spirit of Antichrist?
We made this case in that book, and also in our ongoing series, Unraveling Revelation. We believe that the beast that emerges from the sea in Revelation 13 is this multi-headed chimera. That's exactly how dragons, and specifically the chaos monster, was depicted in ancient Mesopotamia. And so we think that the spirit that will inhabit the human that we call Antichrist in the end times is the spirit of chaos, the spirit of Leviathan. We look at what's happening in our streets around the world today. What else would you call it but chaos?
Right.
Even though he's not destroyed, and he and his minions, these demonic minions, are still influencing the world today.
Well, and then Jesus gave power to his disciples. He sends them out. They come back amazed that even the demons are subject to them by his name. And from the first era of the church until today, the subduing of these forces that are always wanting to pierce into this reality, to damage mankind again, they've been suppressed. But now, as the world and the church is turning to heresy, apostasy. People are not going to church anymore. People don't believe in God anymore. All of that's happening, and look what's happening. Chaos is developing all around the world. This, at its core, is a supernatural warfare.
It is. And, there's even a callback to an earlier program on Skywatch TV with Rudy Landa and Doug Van Dorn, the author of Giants, Sons of the Gods, the Angels and Watchers docuseries. That was focusing on the megalithic structures in the ancient kingdom of Bashan, where Og of Bashan was the ruler, the last of the remnant of the Rephaim. His kingdom was the first military objective given to Moses by God. And that name, Bashan, literally means place of the serpent. That was the name of the Akkadian chaos dragon, the seven-headed dragon depicted in an ancient inscription dated to about 2600 BC, showing the war god Ninurta defeating Bashmu, Bashan, the chaos serpent. And interestingly, one of the heads appears to have suffered a mortal wound, just as prophesied in the book of Revelation. And think about that. As much time passed between that little inscription, this little depiction of this battle between a warrior god and chaos, and Jesus walking the earth, as between Nebuchadnezzar destroying the temple in Jerusalem and us having this conversation.
Yeah.
This is a very, very old battle, but the Bible contains the true record of this history.
This is one of the reasons that I'm saying everybody's got to get this book. There is so much about the history of the world and its connection to the Hebrew Bible, the arrival of Jesus Christ. And of course, there's a lot more if you go into Mount Hermon and all that. He continues to illustrate his power. He goes from there, he's crucified, he goes down into the lower regions of the earth, and he says, I'm here, boys, and you can't do nothing about it. So the Bible is a testament of what did happen. And some people believe, by the way, that the Tohu, the void era, might not have even been the first time. There could have been one before that.
Oh, yeah, I've heard
and then
that.
Lucifer comes down and he starts it all over again. And then what happens? You get to the New Testament, God recreates everything, and here he is again. They're descending on Mount Hermon. They're coming in to genetically manipulate the human race like they did with the dinosaur era and all that. It just happens over and over and over. But the good news is it is coming to an end.
Yeah.
Because Jesus Christ is about to return to this planet, and he's going to mop clock with the rest of these entities.
Yeah, I love it.
That description you just gave too reminded me of the song Carmen did, The Champion.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
when the demons and stuff are fighting and Jesus is fighting Satan and they're going after it, and then Jesus goes down for the count, but then God counts.
Right.
10, 9, 8, 7, and it goes. It's just incredible song. I love that song.
Well, the Bible's just so much more entertaining than fiction. Like any movie you go watch, you don't know who you should root for, whatever. We know we can root in Jesus. Not at the end, we win.
That's right.
He wins, he conquers the world.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, I'm going. See you tomorrow. God bless.
Here and really highlight what lies beneath, because this was a DVD that you produced with Dr. Aaron Judkins on this subject, and it complements the Before Genesis book so perfectly.
Yeah, he's